Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another exciting round of epic racing action in the League Zero Formula Series Season 17 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly presented by none other than INCA Salsa. We are here today then for round number 4 and after a terrific round of racing at Interlagos last time out, we've gone from the conventional to the unconventional. We have made our way back to the US of A, but we have headed to the state of Georgia for the one and only rollercoaster ride of road racing, that is Road Atlanta. Known as the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta in full for sponsorship reasons, regardless of the sponsorship, the one thing that this circuit has retained throughout its eclectic history is a 55-year run of some of the most incredible undulations and elevation changes that any circuit in the world can pack into its length. 2.54 miles in length, you would think this is going to be a short and unremarkable circuit, but it is far from that, because over its 12 corners, many of them sweeping bends, which feature blind apexes and indeed very changing track limits. It is a circuit where drivers are required to drive on the absolute limit in order to get the most out of each and every lap. Around here, being able to master the changing camber of the road from corner to corner and from start to corner to the very end of it is all the key to victory. And for our drivers here, they're going to have to find that limit quickly, because if they go too far, they'll end up in the grass and could be making a trip to the barriers, but if they don't go far enough, they may end up falling victim to their rivals behind, and that's what makes racing at Road Atlanta so exciting time and time again. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast viewing pleasure brought to you on YouTube at Paul Walsh Productions. Indeed, go to youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP, and you can be tuning in there as we take a look back at all the racing action as if it were live from Thursday, the 29th of January 2026, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live today in this premiering video on what is Friday at the 30th of January. Therefore, we do not know what happens in the practice session, which is gradually coming to its conclusion in the background, nor the upcoming qualifying session or our two races, and that's why it's going to be as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls tuning in as you do so each and every week. In the content review, you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of the season. And speaking of our broadcast for tonight, in terms of our times, it is none other than Eastern Standard Time EST, or Universal Coordinate Time -5, UTC -5. As we can see, in approximately what will be around 13 minutes time, we'll be making our way into our qualifying session, 15 minutes in duration, and all of our drivers out there looking to give it their all to go for pole position. And once that concludes, at 9:30 this evening, we'll be heading out for the first of our two races. It'll be the 12-lap sprint. It'll be very rapid indeed, with the lap times around here just in excess of a minute, after which we'll take a brief breather before returning at approximately 9:45 this evening for the 38-lap feature, where we maximise the number of laps by a factor of 3. We add in a good mix of strategy as well. And my goodness, will it be a race to remember, much like our sprint. But as we make our way into this round and get ourselves set to go racing in the US state of Georgia, it's only appropriate we recap the story from round number 3 and how it has changed the dynamic of our respective championships. So let's take a trip back in time. Because as we look to our calendar then, where were we last time out? Well, in round number 3, we were at the Interlagos circuit, the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache in Brazil. That was on the 22nd of January. And what exactly were the big headlines on the 22nd of January? Well, firstly, there was a rival to Finley Fitzsimmons throughout both races, indeed in qualifying, because it was not our MSR Purple driver trying to go for another championship crown, indeed trying to become a three-time champion, who was the man who ended up on pole. Instead, by a thousandth right at the death of the session, it was Adam Merchant who was able to steal it away. And the narrative of the sprint race would be the battle between the two titans of Merchant and Fitzsimmons, with the Adam Merchant leading for the majority of the race, but things started to get a little bit hectic and frantic towards the very end, and side-by-side contact between the two drivers going through turn number 4, where it meant that whilst Adam Merchant won on the road, a post-round stewarding decision saw him drop down the order and in the end relegated to 3rd place. So Finley Fitzsimmons took the win as a result, and it was 2nd place that went to Antonio Bianchi in the end, who wasn't too far behind. Meanwhile, in the feature race, where it really was the battle of Fitzsimmons versus Merchant Part 2 there. It was the ultimate rematch, but we also sprinkled in a good degree of strategy. And on the strategic state, Finley Fitzsimmons was the first to pull the plug when it came to strategy and make his way into the pit lane. However, traffic was a key factor, and it saw him come out behind Adam Merchant when Adam made his pit stop. However, there was a big twist. The two drivers continued to battle all the way through, and with several off-tracks accumulated for both drivers, but particularly so for Adam Merchant, after a brief tap between the two drivers and then further 2 off tracks, we saw Adam Merchant from the lead pick up a black flag. It was a drive-through penalty, and that gave Finley Fitzsimmons the opportunity to storm away and bring on home 2 wins out of 2 in the feature race. Elliot Court, meanwhile, he came all the way from the back of the field to make his way to what was just outside the top 10 for the purposes of the sprint race, and then come the feature, he was the man who finished in 2nd place, knowing it was going to be 3rd place until he picked up the pieces with Adam Merchant's drive-through penalty. So there were some incredible drives on the podium places, and indeed we need need to talk about some other incredible drivers as well, including the incredible battling of both Shahi Zahair and his teammate Nick Peterson, where both of them right in the thick of it at the bottom end of the top 10. But we could recap all those stories to and fro, but we need to try and make sure we don't get too hung up in the past, because as we come into the present, well, this is definitely going to be a round to remember. And after today, of course, we come to the midpoint of the season with round number 5 and 9, when we make our way to Germany, not quite for the Nürburgring as we all think of it, the Green Hell, but instead we'll be making our way south of the Eiffel Mountains to the Nürburgring Grosse Preisstrecke, or the GP circuit. And that'll be on the 5th of February, and indeed, what a round we've got in store there. But as we make our way into this round, we talked a little bit about who the winners and the podium finishers were from last time out. So what about the Drivers' Championship? How has that changed as a result? Well, we come to the top 15 firstly, with our slightly updated coloration there, going for a bit more of a dark theme here, to make it a bit clearer in terms of the results and the names. And there is one name that's standing the test of time at the very top, Finley Fitzsimmons, with 5 out of 6 wins now, and on 91 points. Can anybody slow this man down? Because the thing is, there are plenty of drivers out there who have shown they can match him on pace, whether it be Adam Merchant, Antonio Bianchi, or Jaden Callaway, but nobody has been able to interrupt his ability to secure wins, whether it be on circuit or as a result of post-round stewarding. But to be fair, that's what the stewards are there for, to make sure the race is as fair as humanly possible. And Fitzsimmons right now, he's got it all going for him. And in the battle for second, that's where things are really heating up, because Elliot Court has moved all the way into second place, and whilst it was looking to be a nightmare day at the office last time out, given the fact that he started the day with a qualifying ban from Miami, will come the end of it all, he made his way onto the podium in the feature race, and therefore those 53 points right now will feel very precious to him. Leo Del Mar, he was in a similar situation, a qualifying ban going to Interlagos, and therefore it was all about redemption for him, much like it was for Court, and that's why he's only 3 points behind, but he has fallen back as Court was the better of the two drivers in making the recovery charges. Fabian Sanchez, he's always looking impressive as he moves up to 4th place. He's now 12 points ahead of Craig Brick, who didn't quite have as good as a round as he did at Miami, but still right in the thick of the fighting. And it's Shaden Callaway in 6th, who wasn't on the grid last time out. Indeed, we massively missed him, but we look forward to seeing him back on the grid at some point later on this season. Jace Mayer, well, what a challenging day it was for him. In the sprint race, things went quite well. However, it all went very backwards in the feature race, given an incident which saw him miss out on some critical points, and he's holding on to 7th right now, but only 2 points ahead of Elliot Rolls and Adam Merchant. Merchant making his debut for the season, of course, and that's why he's on 27 points in 9th place, but you can imagine he's going to try and charge up the field as quickly as he can. He's ahead of Antonio Bianchi by 5 points, and it's Shahi Zahair who's just outside the top 10 based on result countback. Then we have Austin Thomas, James Turnbull, Nick Peterson, and Demont Dotson, who complete that top 15, and from the 10 points of Dotson in 15th place, what about 16th through to 30, if I hear you ask? Well, here we are, and there is that gap of 7 points there until you get to the quartet of Jack Mundy, Gareth McAllister, Sergei Perok, and also John Stonbra, with all 4 of those drivers enjoying mixed fortunes at Interlagos. Wasn't quite the day to be enjoyed for them, but meanwhile we also got to see what was a sliver of points for none other than Cameron Nix, as he's now on 2 points and 1 ahead of both Shea Buffett and Zabir Zainav, who Buffett put together a very good overtake midway through Interlagos, indeed one of the highlights of the day. On 0 points we have Joshua Cronin, Renison Lowe, Francisco Sosa, and also Matt Strong and Ryan Thibault. And on negative points due to post-race stewarding deductions, we do see there Robert Nobles, Felipe Ramos, and also Catherine Sweat. And outside the top 30, let's not forget about them. We've also got there in 31st place conjoined, none other than Carlos Balinas, ahead of Ricardo Espino and Aaron Gusler, with Arturo Mayorga on minus 10 points at the moment and needed to find those points sooner rather than later. But that is the Drivers' Championship standings. What about the Teams' Championship? Well, here we can see it is MSR Purple now on 40 points of a lead ahead of DDK Racing. However, it was DDK Racing who in the end were able to land the most points out of everybody last time out, and therefore they have moved into second place ahead of INCA X51C. It is tightening up right now in the battle for second place, but DDK Racing have got their eyes on one thing and one thing only. That is hunting down the leaders, who, whilst Finley Fitzsimmons, of course, brought in a huge haul of points, the maximum possible points he could. It's good in the absence of the pole position out of qualifying. Well, unfortunately for Jace Mayer, things did not go right in that feature race. He missed out on some critical points, and that's opened the doorway for DDK Racing's pair of the Elliots to try and close down the leaders. Meanwhile, INCA X51C, well, they definitely do need both of their drivers on the grid wherever possible, because Antonio Bianchi put the points together, particularly at impressive points in the sprint race, but the absence of Jaden Callaway was definitely felt. Squid Gang Racing sit in 4th place, meanwhile, having moved up 2 places ahead of Rodent Racing and INCA Salsa Racing, where their drivers doing a very good job job in Brazil. And then we do see in 7th place Arrive and Drive Racing holding firm in 7th. The best part there of what is none other than 22 points ahead of MSR Creed, who have moved up into 8th place with some points coming their way. And then Raccoon GP and Formula American Racing Team complete that top 10. Outside the top 10 length, it's DDK with TH Jordan with a point on the board ahead of Team Boats, who made their debut, their formal debut with some very lovely liveries, but no points achieved unfortunately. And on negative points, it's INCA Salsa Verde in 13th on -3, and then 4 behind them is INCA Chips, and it's a further 2 points back for INCA Queso, and that's how the team standings stand. So let's now talk a little bit about our host circuit for today. And of course, it is the Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. Its full layout, located near the town of Brazelton in Hall County of the US state of Georgia, where huge thank you to iRacing.com for their brilliant simulator and the track maps that come with it. There's only one slight problem with a track map of this degree. It's two-dimensional. It does not demonstrate just how many elevation changes are woven into the track surface, and therefore we won't dwell on it for too long because it's better to talk about the lap when we ride on board with other drivers in qualifying. But 12 corners here as our drivers make the way on through, and this circuit has been gradually revised over its extensive history into the layout you see today, with the most notable change being the introduction of the turns 10A and 10B chicane all the way back in what was the early 1990s, and that for the purposes of safety, because it used to be a run all the way from turn number 7, as you see on here, all the way through into turn 11 down towards turn number 12. There never used to be a break in the speeds, and drivers in higher power machinery, particularly in the IMSA vintage era, well, you would see drivers making the way into turn number 11 to go into a braking zone all the way from about 180 to 190 miles an hour into an absolutely jaw-dropping elevation descent through to the final 2 corners, and that's why it was introduced there. But sweeping bends are plenty. The infamous S's sequence between turns 4 and 5, there's nothing not to like here, and as we get ready to go racing the course, well, let's give you a quick recap of the rules. This is a fixed setup series with setups provided to our drivers ahead of each and every race day. Fuel loads, they have been restricted to 40%. Qualifying wise, the session shall be open. That means all drivers are out of the circuit looking to try and go for pole position together, and that means you can try to utilise slipstream, but you've got to be wary about stepping on your rival's toes. There's no overtime in qualifying, so when we do see the clock say it's 0, it means qualifying is done and dusted. They cannot finish their current lap. Race-wise, it shall commence via standing start, as it's a tradition of the League Zero Formula Series. Driver penalties shall be awarded at 17 instant points should our drivers get that far, and we have seen a couple of those this season so far, particularly in Interlagos, and we'll see the grid for the feature race being set based on the finishing positions of the sprint race. However, we invert the top 6 finishing positions. What does that mean for layman's terms? It means the winner of the sprint race starts 6th for the purposes of the feature, and we continue to invert those finishers until we get to the 6th place finisher, who starts on pole for the purposes of the feature race, and then 7th and down, you guessed it right, they start exactly where they finished in the sprint when they head to the feature race grid. And there are no mandatory pit stop requirements in the feature race or in any of the races. However, in the feature, with the fuel tank, we do normally expect our drivers to come into the pits for fuel, but also for an all-important tyre change to give them the best possible boots to go racing all the way to the very end. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side. And as we do, well, there's not long left to go in this final practice warm-up session. I do believe there's only the best part of approximately 5 minutes. Don't trust the timer at the top center of your screen right now. That seems to be a little bit erroneous, but still, we have about 5 minutes left of this practice session. And Shahi Zahair, well, look at that. If Vinny Fitzsimmons is the fastest driver out there by half a second, Zahair, meanwhile, well, he's proved to be the second fastest, and this will be the strongest we've seen for him all season long, as we do see his teammate there, Nick Peterson, trying to follow on, and I think trying to use Zahair as a little bit of a pace car there. As both drivers make the way up the hill, it is incredibly fast lap around here in any class of machinery, even at club level. If, say, you have MX5 racing, but in the Super Formula SF23 cars, well, I'll tell you one thing, we do see open wheel racing at Road Atlanta on an annual basis, but it's normally in much less powerful machines. You are more looking towards what would be the likes of, say, the Skip Barber Formula style era of cars, or alternatively what would be Formula 4 equivalent, not Super Formula machines, with their incredible 550 brake horsepower delivered by their 4-cylinder 2-litre engines, and that's without consider the engine power that's added to by the overtake button, which our drivers only have available, of course, in what will be the races. 200 seconds of it in both races, it should be pointed out. But around here, these cars will definitely gobble up the lap very quickly. But then again, that's what makes it such an intriguing pick for the season. In fact, it's an unconventional circuit, but what you could also see, based on these circuit images, is just how wide the circuit is, as Nick Peterson dives his way into the pit lane, gets it slightly wrong, and that's going to be one of the big contention points here today, is that pit entry. It is so difficult to get right when you carry all the speed down the hill, and anybody who gets it wrong and touches that grass, they're going to be very quickly making their way to the concrete barrier, and they're going to be losing the front wing, if not plenty more. They may even have to tow from literally only about a metre or two from the pit limiter line. As we do see Aaron Gersler making his way on down. We do have a grand total of 28 drivers here today, albeit a few of them have yet to set practice laps, including Felipe Ramos and also Catherine Sweat. But to be fair to all the drivers here who have made the journey to Georgia, as we do see there Aaron Gusler making a journey, rolls to the grass and hits the tyre barrier there, coming out of turn number 11. And, well, that's the car that's going to be stuck in the grass potentially. No, he does get it going. Can he get it turned? The steering knot's going to be absolutely abysmal. No, he can't. And there's an example of what happens when you do get it wrong into the pit, and indeed you lose out. But, ladies and gentlemen, practice is complete. It's now time for our drivers to put their money where the pace is, because it is time for qualifying. Who's going to be on pole after 15 minutes? Let's find out. And so as 15 minutes begins to tick away, it is going to be a very quick session, no doubt about it. Not just because of the pace that our drivers bring to the table here, but also the fact these laps, when you've got such a short lap, they really do feel as though they fly on by. And, well, the pressure is going to be on here for all the drivers to try and find some clear track to get a good lap in, at least a good banker lap, and then try and find somebody to slipstream off of on the back straight. Because that's going to be the interesting thing about qualifying. Firstly, how do you get a good qualifying lap around here? Well, the theory is you do not want the dirty of another car. You do not want to be in the slipstream. Oh, my goodness, it's Chase Mann that gets it wrong. Cut out turn number 5. Piece of the car roll across the road. Thankfully, their debris not modelled to the point it can deliver punches. Otherwise, that would be horrendous. But that goes up very wrong there very quickly. As Cronin fights there with cold tyres coming out of turn number 5. He's very eager to get going. But perhaps a few drivers a bit too eager there coming out of turn number 5. Well, we'll come on to why they're having those big moments very shortly. But let's come back to our topic at hand in terms of how you deliver a good qualifying lap around here. This is the part of the lap where you do want the slipstream, the run out of turn 7 all the way down towards the turn 10 chicane. Because down here you can gain the best part of 2 to 3 miles an hour quicker by the midway point compared to the car in front. And therefore you can max out towards that 189 miles an hour top speed that these cars are limited to. Conversely, the first half of lap, all the way from turn 1 through to turn 6 and 7, you do not want the toe, because the dirty air will wash out the front end of these Super Formula machines and it will invoke understeer. And understeer through the S's is tantamount to a nightmare, given the fact that our drivers will want that dirty air, because it will cause the car to want to straight line rather than turn in for a section of corners which is absolutely packed full of direction changes, as Joshua Crane is going to demonstrate here. But why exactly did we see a couple of drivers get it wrong anyway, including Jason Mayer had to tow back to the pit lane after his impact with the wall, and Joshua Cronin almost managed to replicate that? Well, the simple reason is what you'll notice is the curbs around here are very high. It's one of the things that our drivers need to be careful of. Compared to, say, Interlagos, where the curbs, whilst they are elevated to a degree, they are nowhere near as much in terms of elevation. The curbs here at Road Atlanta take no prisoners, and they will see these effects whereby if they start to mount those curbs, the car's weight transfer will be completely interrupted, and suddenly you may find the rear end of the car go sliding round. Remember, these are incredibly lightweight machines. The engine is located behind the driver, and therefore all the weight to the car is really on a pendulum towards the rear rather than the front. And when you added the effects of the front wing and the rear wing as well, it makes these cars very sensitive to weight transfer, but also to aero transfer as well. And as we do see Joshua Cronin making his way through turn number 12, we'll look to Finley Fitzsimmons meanwhile. Let's get his first lap on the board. It's a 103.617. And of course, all the drivers will be pushing on as quickly as they can. Now, in terms of other things to consider in this qualifying session, we do have quite a sizable penalty list from Interlagos, and we do have several drivers who have a qualified ban, firstly, including none other than Ricardo Espino, and also Aaron Gusler, Antonio Bianchi, and Nick Peterson. All of those drivers picking up qualifying bans because of, essentially, what was instance in the feature race, particularly for Ricardo Espino, who you got to feel for, because he was involved in an incident at the start of the sprint race, which was deemed not his fault. It put him out of the race. Then in the feature race, he was involved in a similar incident. However, unfortunately, he was deemed at fault for that one by the stewards after the racing. So therefore, for Espino, just no luck in Brazil, and understandably, he'll be coming back here today thinking to himself, how can I have some good luck? But indeed, we have got 4 qualifying bans, which means the drivers are not allowed to take part in this session, but they will be joining the back of the grid for the purposes of the sprint race. But we also have 2 pit lane starts for the sprint race, and they are for Elliot Court and also for Leo Del Mar, and they are for an instant in the sprint for Court and mean one instant in the feature for Del Mar. And it's quite interesting the fact that the 2 drivers who had to put together these absolute monster recovery performances at Interlagos have now got to do it again, albeit it's not a back of the grid start anymore, it is a pit lane start. And why is that more punishing, I hear you ask? Well, the simple fact of the matter is, back of the grid start, you go when everyone else goes, albeit you've got to overtake everybody. everybody. A pit lane start is essentially you don't go when everyone else goes, you wait at the end of the pit lane, and then once all the drivers have made their way past the pit exit, that's when you can build up speed. So you naturally then do have somewhere in the region of about a 5 to 10 second gap to the field, which you've got to close down before you then actually get to go racing in what is a 12 lap race. Already for intents and purposes around here, given the lap times we are seeing, it is no more than about a 14-minute race. That is the quandary that drivers are going to experience in the sprint race. Essentially, that by starting from the pit lane, they have always got to close down time, and given how close the lap times are coming in here, that is not going to be easy when you are in clear air. So, a little bit of theory there, and well, as we come back to our drivers who are out of the circuit, Xavier Zainab here, currently 11th. He is 1.1 seconds off the overall pole time. Well, Finley Fitzsimmons right now replicating what he's been doing in practice, which is just running away as we get that lovely camera shot there at the apex of turn number 12. You can see the speed that Zainab comes through, avoiding that apex curve like the plague. And meanwhile, as we come back to your current original pole man, MSR Purple, the man right now, who, as we said earlier on, seems unstoppable in his championship charge as we get towards the halfway point of the season, but he knows he's got to take every racing round as if it's a fresh one. He can't rely on his laurels, and he hasn't been doing that, to be fair. And indeed, many will remember the opening round at Phillip Island, where it looked to be 2 for 2 until it all went very backwards in the feature race. But we're going to jump aboard here with Finley Fitzsimmons for a flying lap as he takes us around in his Super Formula 23. So making his way down towards turn number 1, and as he does so here, 6th gear, chuck the car in, use all the air as he heads up the hill, and now gets ready for turns 2, 3 and 4, braking at the apex of 2, dropping down a gear to 5th, then to 4th, going from 3 to 4, and now left, right through these corners here, the S's. As he goes flat out, he has to stamp on the brakes slightly, or does he? Drops 2 gears indeed, and as he makes way out, now up towards turn number 6. Brings the car gradually over to the left-hand side. It looks for his brake marker. It will be about 100 metres from quarter apex as he comes through down to 4th gear and onto the brakes a bit more sharply down to 2nd gear as he comes it out. And now Fitzsimmons powering his way back up the gearbox as quickly as he can. Already back up into what will be at 6th gear very shortly, heading upwards of 160 miles an hour here as he gets to the halfway point of the backstretch. Now getting ready to bring the car over to the right-hand side for the turn 10 chicane. Looks to his right for his marker. And it will be there, what will be the 125-metre marker that he comes all the way down, trail braking the 3rd gear. And now flat out up the hill here. Tyres at full temperature over the crest. And now down into the drop here. Coming in towards turn number 12. No hesitation. Full out. Full throttle. And as he crossed the line, he was a 10th off his previous best. But Finley Fitzsimmons there gives us a lovely demonstration lap of what you can do here at Road Atlanta in the Super Formula 23. And right now just trying to find a bit more time because Elliot Rolls, the DDK Racing team driver who is permitted to qualify, he moves up to 2nd ahead of Shea Bruffett and Shahi Zahir. Bruffett does improve and squeezes ahead. It is getting very tight to be the 2nd car on that front row of the grid. And it could all chop and change still with just over half the session left. But of course, keep in mind, with no overtime, we will see our drivers need to get their laps done or onto their final lap with approximately 1 minute and 5 seconds remaining if they want to be safe. So therefore, this qualifying session has a bit less time left compared to what the timer at the top says in theory. But as all the drivers carry on, are there any big surprises? Adam Merchant right now, he seems to be struggling a little bit in this qualifying session. 8th is the best he's been able to achieve so far. And will he leave it all the way to the last possible minute? Because this was a theory, of course, of Interlagos. It looked as though he was struggling in qualifying there. He could only manage what was the 2nd row of the grid, and he was a long way off of Fitzsimmons' pace. And in his final qualifying lap, it all just suddenly clicked. He found some draft. He also found the pace. He started setting purple sector after purple sector. But right now for Adam Merchant, well, the problem is when you've got such a short lap here, if you are naturally down on pace by a couple of attempts, finding that couple of attempts is the equivalent of gold dust here. And that, I think, is on his mind right now as he comes across the timeline. Does not improve this time around. So Merchant is running out of time to get the job done. We will see what he's going to be able to do as he makes his way down to the S's this time. You can see the body language of the car here. Looking very smooth, but I suspect the delta may be in the simple fact that perhaps he's not as confident as returning to the throttle. Takes a lot of apex curve there at turn number 5. That's brave. The car can take it, even though it's quite a high curve. The suspension is made to travel enough. However, I wonder if that curb usage might just be holding Merchant back a little bit. As Craig Brick, meanwhile, in the 777, he parks up after crossing the line. He goes up to 5th place at a 103.661. Well, Brick doing a brilliant job there in the 777 machine. He's thinking he's lucky today, and well, wouldn't blame him about that. As meanwhile, Shahi Zahir makes his way up the hill. Currently the full fastest, but we saw him 2nd fastest in practice. But I wonder if a few drivers just held back a little bit of pace in practice in order not to reveal their hand in preparation for qualifying. I think Zahir's one of those drivers, he's all or nothing. Other drivers, meanwhile, they can tempt themselves not to go quick. Shea Bruffett now jumps up to 2nd place, 103.219. Sanchez is up into 5th. He's devoted to 6th as Adam Merchant does start to come on through. And we'll never rule this man out. He is now building up something special here. as he comes on down. There's been a couple of cones that have been knocked over, and I do wonder who's gone straight on there. And well, as he comes on down the hill, we believe that might have been Austin Thomas who's had a bit of a trip, but he drops right now, still trying to push for a little bit more. We've got a third of the qualifying session left to go shortly, and Adam Merchant in the number 4 is currently fourth. But I think he wants more. He wants to be on that front row. Are we going to see a rematch again between Fitzsimmons and Merchant? If we do, it's going to be a blockbuster, and it will probably be absolute cinema. And overtaking a battling round here is highly possible. The side draft will be very strong through some of the corners, but also that run down the back straight here. We'll see drivers never quite fall away from each other. They're getting towards the end of that run, and right now Adam Merchant, he tries to find more time as Fitzsimmons goes even faster. A 102.739. Fitzsimmons right now, I think he's conscious of what's happening as his teammate Jace Mayer finds some time up to 103.634, finds a couple of attempts, moves himself onto the third row of the grid, just ahead of Fabian Sanchez, and look at the gap. Oh, goodness me, as he snaps loose there, coming from 3, and Jace Mayer there straight onto the grass and losing his front wing. That's giving a toe to the pits there, chucks the car off the road after it starts to go wrong. No, he doesn't want to impede anybody, as otherwise he could be subject to a penalty going into the next round, and does exactly that as the car rolls along. I think he's going to try and get it to the pit lane where he can, but that's not going to be easy. As meanwhile, we look to Robert Nobles, the MSR Engineering green driver right now, currently the 11th fastest. In terms of the gap to Austin Thomas, he is only a 10th behind Thomas at the moment. Wanted a bit more time, 9 thousandths if you want to be a little bit more, sorry, 9 hundredths if you want to be a little bit more accurate. As Wilson improves to 14th, Arturo Mayorga improves to 17th. Mayorga right now finding a little bit of time here towards the end of the session, albeit I think right now for the INCA driver, he is looking for what would be perhaps a top 15 start here. Keep in mind, of course, that points are awarded only for the top 12 places in the feature race, a change of the rules this season, whereas previously it was for the top 15 finish positions, so points have become even more precious as more times are coming in. We're seeing changes, and it rolls down to second. He's only what is 18 thousandths ahead of Shane Bruffett, and Merchant meanwhile improves. We briefly lose our time towel there, and then it re-materialises. So our time towel there being in such awe and shock, if you will, of some improvements for drivers. He's ahead now, is leaving the pit lane again. He's going to give it one more go, is he? No, he parks up, in fact. So therefore, in fact, yes, he does get going in the end. He's going to go for all or nothing last-ditch run at this. And indeed, it's going to be last chance saloon here for the number 10 driver from Sri Lanka. What can he do to try and get himself back on the second row, if not the front row of the grid? Well, we will see. He's going to have this out lap plus 1 lap to go, but do keep in mind the fact that with the fuel tanks they have and these being fixed setups, our drivers are not allowed to change the fuel in the car, so therefore he's going to have a fuel-laden car here. Is this just going to be simply a reference lap he does at this point in order to see? Well, we'll find out the next time around. Perhaps just getting himself keyed in a little bit for how the car is going to feel at the start of the sprint race, which isn't a bad idea if he doesn't think he's able to improve any further. But as we look to Elliot Rolls, making his way down the back stretch here, does he pick up a toe off of the car in front of him? The answer is going to be yes, but I think he's getting position for the final run. Fabian Sanchez moves up to 6th. Austin Thomas now moves up to 7th. A lovely lap there for the MSR green driver. He moves to 103.567. He's on the heels of Sanchez here for the third row of the grid. Jason Mayer and Craig Brecker into the pit lane. So is Lowe, Cronin, Strong and Sweat. So they will not be improving. As we are, Catherine Sweat does leave the pit lane, I do believe. Nope, she just got back in the car getting ready to go. But meanwhile, Cameron Nick's here. And Nick's in a very colourful machine in the INCA Salsa machinery, making his way on down the back stretch at the moment. And Felipe Ramos is a little bit further adrift, but the two of them very close together in terms of qualifying pace for what is that 10th row of the grid. But as we see Nick's make his way onwards, Arturo Mayorga across the line, goes 16th for the 104.433. As he does so, well, where is our drivers who are out there looking to try and go for the pole position at the moment? Austin Thomas, he makes his way down. And I don't think he's going to have more than one more lap after this, as the MSR green driver right now, seeing if he can go even higher, seeing whether he can get a season best qualified performance. A 7th place start would be a season best for the sprint race, but I think he wants a little bit more. So let's jump aboard, ladies and gentlemen, with Austin Thomas as he takes us around for his final flying lap. So across that timeline he goes, and well, does improve that time. Can he improve again? In towards turn number 1, as late as he dares to do so. Up the hill he goes, in towards turn number 2. So little visibility at turn number 3. Goes a bit deep now. No, and he just about keeps it together. Fights on the steering wheel. Austin Thomas there, he'll lose a tenth at least as he comes down to the S's. But he's going to commit to the bit here, and as he comes through turn number 5, full attack every step of the way, bouncing his way out. That's got to be rough on the spine as he now makes his way up towards turn number 6. In towards the right-hander here, and Thomas now he's got to overdrive to make up time, and he goes a bit wide of apex here. It's Thomas pushing himself too hard now, trying to make up for lost ground. He runs wide a little bit there as well. It's going to more and more scrappy lap here, but he's still trying as he makes his way down the back straight here. And we're going to stay on board all the way to the end, because this driver's eye view really giving you an idea of just how aggressive the lap is at Road Atlanta, and the idea you've got to be on the limit to win it. But as he comes over into the break-ins over turn number 10, all the way down the gearbox to fourth gear, cutting those curves, staying in fourth rather than dropping a third there. That's dealt with rear wheel spin. Comes over the rise and down in towards the final corner, and as he does so, making his way through. For Austin Thomas, is it an improvement? It is a slight improvement for Austin Thomas, but not what he wanted. As Adam Merchant stays full for the 103.206. He has found some time, but right now, in fact, 286 there as I correct my eyesight, and well, as these drives all come to the end, 40 seconds left on the clock. Finley Fitzsimmons is trying to push even higher as Elliot Rolls improves by a couple of thousandths to 103.096. He will be secure in second place. Shea Bruffett right now, I don't think he's got enough time here. 30 seconds left on the clock. There's Fitzsimmons. There's Shea Bruffett a bit further back as he has a tank slapper there coming out of turn number 7. And right now, the Shade Machine, well, trying to do everything it can to move onto the front row of the grid, but I don't think he's going to be able to here. 15 seconds, 14, 13, it's not enough time. He's going to run out of time. Sergei Brock, meanwhile, he's currently in 11th. He is going to be the last driver to get a lap in. Sidney Fitzsimmons crosses that line at 102.708, but Brock comes on through, and in the end, it's 9th. A lovely lap there for Sergei Brock. He moves to 9th place, and that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness me, what could we expect in the race? Well, the good news is we don't have to wait any longer to find out, because it is time for us to go racing. And as all our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll all line up for the first of our 2 races here in round number 4 of the League Zero Formula Series Season 17, brought to you by INCA Salsa. It's Finley Fitzsimmons who lines up on pole position then, and will be joined on the front row of the MSR Purple driver. 4 tenths behind him, it was Elliot Rolls for DDK Racing. Then from the Scotsman, it will be the American Shea Bruffett with a season best qualifying points, starting in 3rd for DDK with TH Jordan. Then it's going to be Adam Merchant, starting 4th for Squid Gang Racing. Couldn't quite put the puzzle together right at the end to get himself on the front row, but I think you'll still take the confidence of the fact he's starting 4th. Fabian Sanchez begins this one on the 3rd row for Squid Gang Racing in 5th, just behind his teammate, and just ahead of Arrive and Drive Racing Shah, who's a hare, who put together a good qualifying lap, and indeed starts his highest he's done all season so. Austin Thomas starts 7th, a season best qualifying points for the MSR Green driver as well, ahead of Robert Nobles, his teammate. They lock out row number 4. And in row number 5, it's going to be Sergei Proc, who starts 9th, with a late improvement in qualifying ahead of Jason Mayer, who starts 10th for MSR Purple. In 11th, we'll have Craig Brick, who struggled a little bit towards the end of qualifying, but the INCA Salsa Racing driver will know the race is definitely where he needs to do well, with none other than James Turnbull alongside for Raccoon GP, doing well in qualifying. And then we'll have none other than Rodent Racing Xavier Sainav with season best qualifying points, starting 13th. From the Frenchman, it'll then be John Stumbra, who starts 14th, and then we will have the Canadian of Renison Lowe for Team Boats, just ahead of Arturo Mayorga for INCA Chips, who make up your 8th fry of the grid. It's then going to be Joshua Cronin, who starts 17th, the Nicaraguan driver for Team Boats, ahead of INCA Salsa Racing's American driver there of Matt Strong. And in 19th and 20th, it's going to be Felipe Ramos for INCA Queso and Cameron Nix for INCA Salsa Verde. Outside the top 20, starting in at 21st place, it's going to be Catherine Sweat for Formula American Racing. And then we come to those with qualifying bands and pit lane starts, including Elliot Court for DDK Racing, Leo Delmar for Rodent Racing. Those two will be starting from the pit lane. And then we have Antonio Bianchi for INCA X51C ahead of Nick Peterson for Ride and Drive Racing, with Aaron Gerster for INCA Salsa Verde ahead of Ricardo Espino for INCA Queso, and Formula American Racing's DeMonte Dotson completing that starting order. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the lights are going on for the first time today. We're set to go racing here, and as they all do, well, it's going to be race number 1 day. Lights out and away we go as they roar the way away. And as quick as that, they're off. And Finley Fitzsimmons right now has a good start. But looking further back, Adam Merchant here on the attack immediately. Shea Prophet losing a place into turn number 1 as the clouds come over here. And Sanchez right now looking for a move as well. Is he going to be able to find it? The answer is no, as they make their way into the tree line. Further on back there, plenty of cars battling. Felipe Ramos here fighting hard versus Joshua Cronin as they come from the tree line and down in towards the S's. It's going to be 2 wide here as one car's taking to the escape road there. And that's going to be none other than, I do believe, Arturo Mayorga taking the escape as we now look on the tree line. Oh no! Contact there between 2 cars. Who was that being sent off? That was Xavier Zainav losing out. And Zainav's race will be coming to a halt very quickly, as Karen Nix, meanwhile, had to toe to the pit lane for an instant we haven't seen on camera. But Joshua Cronin there sweeps around the outside of Nick Peterson and, well, makes some ground. Cronin up another place. Nick Peterson as well making ground, having started all the way from the very back in 25th. He's had a good run, but looking back up the front of the field, Shea Bruffett has lost 2 places, the price of the opening lap. Oh my goodness, that's so close between the 2 of them. And in the end, Shahid Zahair forces his way out the inside. Bruffett literally gave him the bare minimum space. And Zahair said, I only need the bare minimum to make the maximum effort. But as they come over the hill, we can see the MSR Green machines Fittings weaving behind. They're struggling with cold tyre temperatures. As Sergei Prok here back on the attack versus Jace Mayer. Lost the place at the start to Mayer. And now looking around the outside in towards turn number 1. He can go for it here, to be fair. But in the end, he decides to back out. There's a lot of gravel that's been brought onto the circuit. In fact, I wonder if that's the wind that's forced that gravel on. But right now, coming down the hill through turns 2, 3 and 4. These drivers push each other incredibly hard here as they make the way in towards the S's sequence. Well, notice how they come in towards turn number 5. No change between them all at the moment. As meanwhile, looking to Shane Buffett here as he makes his way down towards turn number 6. He's having to fight versus Austin Thomas now. Zahair found his way on through, and Thomas tries to go around the outside. He's still there as Austin Thomas. Buffett defending, and that's going to be about who gets on the throttle as quickly as humanly possible. And in the end, it is going to be Austin Thomas, but Buffett will be in the tow. Robert Nobles, however, sweeping out and trying to work with his teammate. His teammate immediately comes over there on the radio to each other saying what they're doing. I mean, Shea Buffett's going to let this go, surely, or not. He does put the push to pass button on right at the end of the straight here to try and look for the counter attack. Buffett on the inside, but in the end relinquishes the position. 9, there's more of a fight to come later on. Jace Mayer here chasing after Sergei Prok. No change between these drivers at the moment as they come over the crest. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Finley Fitzsimmons is bolting away after 2 laps ahead of Elliot Rolls is in second. Adam Merchant completes the top 3 with Fabian Sanchez in 4th place ahead of Shahi Zahair. Then it's Austin Thomas right now. MSR Green 6th and 7th. Robert Nobles behind him. Shea Buffett then is in 8th ahead of Sergei Prok, and Jace Mayer completes that top 10 for MSR Purple. Right now with James Turnbull very eager to find a way through after Mayer has left Craig Brick behind, and right now Turnbull is the man who's on a mission to overtake him. Hill from them, we look to Elliot Rolls here, who right now the 2nd place man, bringing Adam Merchant along for the ride. He's hoping that Merchant doesn't get any closer as hold up a second. James Turnbull's into the wall out of turn number 5. He's going to tow to the pits, and somebody else has been claimed there for the infamous run of the S's to turn 5, and we'll get a replay of that when we can. My goodness me, another loss there, as meanwhile, is it going to be a loss of position for Elliot Rolls as Adam Merchant looks up the inside. The sun comes out in Adam Merchant's race, and he'll be shining bright right now as Elliot Rolls tucks back in behind here. But I think this might be a question of can Adam Merchant pull the 2 of them up to Finley Fitzsimmons, because right now Merchant is on a mission to push through, and we'll cross that line they go. New fastest lap of the race, a 103.210 for Finley Fitzsimmons. Adam Merchant, a 103.263. Benet's got clear track in front of him. Will he close that gap down? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But meanwhile, what we've been waiting to see for some time is some moments from earlier on in the race, ladies and gentlemen, and we take a look back at some of the big moments from the race start. So this is a trip back in time here, and in particular we are going to take a look at what exactly happened to Cameron Nix, who started a long way further back in this order towards the back of the field, got himself green flag racing as they all did. Oh, this be a bit of a sideways skip there for the 43 of Joshua Cronin, and in the end Cronin actually had a really good start as a result of that. Went 3 wide into turn number 1, and that was Nick Peterson who found himself right in the mix as well. Oh, goodness me! And Cameron Nix in contact with Catherine Sweat. The 28 was the car in the middle of all that, the yellow machine, and immediately both drivers there sent to the gravel trap, so it went wrong for them. Then we had this for Xavier Zainab as he went racing. He was making his way away. He took to the escape road there. That was the car we saw under trees, not a Toro Mayorga. And as he made his way towards the end of the S's, it was elbows out there in contact with other drivers, and Xavier Zainab in the end being sent on. And well, as quick as that, his race had all gone wrong. And I think Ricardo Espido was the man in contact with him. We then had this with Matt Strong. And this was Strong making his way out of the final lap. And as he did so, well, what exactly went wrong for him is the question. And the answer is he tried to go around the outside at 11 and found his way off the road. Could he get it under control? He did. Oh, that was very close to the barrier there for Matt Strong. And definitely that's one of those moments when, in fact, he had to park up the car and bring it back on very gradually. And, you know, I think he was of 2 minds whether to go racing or not. And then we had this one, James Turnbull, only moments later on lap number 3. And this was Turnbull making his way up the hill, coming out of turn number 5, bouncing loose. Oh my good lord, into the barrier then. The car just gradually coming to a halt, and that explains what happened to him. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to your live racing pictures. And as we come back, we've still got a bit more of this race to go, no doubt about it. We're into what is lap number 6 very shortly. And right now, a race leader, Finley Fitzsimmons, well, new fastest lap of the race. He continues to push on, does Fitzsimmons, for Adam Merchant chasing him down. But all these drivers right now, they're all very eager to continue to build that momentum as Adam Merchant there takes the grassy run through turn number 1, and Elliot Rolls goes back the inside of him. So there, Merchant just carrying a bit too much speed and paying the price for it as he drops behind Rolls, and Fabian Sanchez is now there with him. But further back, Shane Buffett still chasing after Robert Nobles, clattering his way down through turns 3, 4. And understandably, therefore, the number 79 right now, I think is going to be looking a little bit worse for wear. And he'll try and get it together as the car slides loose coming out of turn number 5. Buffett is pushing hard, having started in 3rd place. Understandably, he wants to get back up the field, but that qualifying pace has not translated into race results so far. But then again, the sprint race may just simply be saying he's not as comfortable with compared to the feature. Oh my good lord, as that's Johnston Bra's car almost exposed at the engine there. Where on earth is that? Well, that is the exit of turn number 6 there as he comes to a halt. That's going to be a tow to the pits of Johnston Bra, but I'm not quite sure how he's ended up there. We'll get a replay of that when we can, ladies and gentlemen. That's a nightmare moment. But meanwhile, it's overtake buttons on for everybody here in the fight for none other than 12th place as Felipe Ramos and Renson Lowe look side by side. And in here is going to be low at the inside there as Ramos, meanwhile, has to go defensive and Nick Peterson's with them. And well, I think Felipe Ramos is sporting some damage with contact with another driver earlier on the opening couple of laps. But meanwhile, Nick Peterson looking around the outside and Peterson claims the place much like Lowe did only moments ago. And I think Ramos right now, he is battling upstream here and that's not going to be easy for that Elliott Court. Well, the man who started all the way from the very back of the field, from the pit lane in fact, he's with Leo Del Mar, both of them with pit lane starts, and therefore they found Arturo Mayorga. They have picked up several places, but other drivers have fallen by the wayside. And in the end, Leo Del Mar, it snaps loose coming down through free into void, takes the escape road, and in the end, he has to go slow there to avoid picking up an extra automated slowdown penalty, which he then have to burn, and that would push him even further back. So therefore, Leo Del Mar doing the right thing and letting Elliott Court go, but that's going to be absolutely frustrating for him. But understandably, as a driver, you never want to back off the throttle, even when you make a mistake. But in that instance, he has to. But as we come to Robert Noble, still fighting with Shane Buffett then as they get ready to battle on the brakes here in towards turn number 10. Looking around the outside, Buffett's going to scoop on round. Lovely move there from Shane Buffett and Sergei Proc and Jace Mayer now getting close to this as we ride on board with Sergei Proc as he comes down in towards turn number 12. Now here it's the fight for 7th all the way through to 11th place as Renson Lowe's been involved in some sort of altercation, I believe, at the turn 11 complex. We'll get a replay of that when we can. Lowe has had to be towed to the pits, unfortunately, off camera. But we stay on board with Sergei Proc for a little bit longer as the car slides. Oh my good lord, that's the dirty air there, unsettling the aero wash of the car. And meanwhile, Jace Mayer tries to find a way through, but he can't. He's not close enough, and coming into the S's, you don't go too wide through there in these machines especially, let alone in what is closed wheel cars, because they make the way up towards turn number 6. Here comes the MSR Purple car. And around the inside he goes. It's a lovely move there from Jace Mayer. But now, of course, he's only got one problem, and that is he's been gifting the draft to everybody behind him. You see everyone with their push to pass buttons on, but the difference is the two cars behind him have the tow as well. So they will gain that speed just that little bit quicker. It's going to be 3 wide here, and well, hold on to this one, ladies and gents. As you can see there, Craig Britt backs out initially, but now looks on the inside again. But this is Moore versus Mayer. They go 2 wide under breaking in. Will they be 2 wide on the way out? And the answer is going to be yes. It's going to be a switchback here. A lovely move from Craig Brick on the inside, and as he gets very tight in towards turn number 12, he has to back out there. Otherwise it would have been a collision cause. So Jace Mayer, they're committing full of confidence, and Craig Brick knowing exactly when the car's not going to be able to make the corner. These cars, they've got a lot of cornering potential, but they've got a limit even so. And right now Craig Brick, Jace Mayer, Sergei Proc enjoying a great ding-dong battle for 9th place, no doubt about it, but it has to stop there for a brief moment, and we will leave it there for a brief moment as we do take a trip back in time to understand what exactly happened to Johnston Bra. So this was Dunbar making his way in towards turn number 6, and as he did so, well, side by side here with none other than Felipe Ramos, and contact with Ramos sent him onto the grass, and at that point the car into the barrier, and that's what we saw happen. Commiserations there for Johnston Bra, who was looking increasingly quick, and then we had this for Renison Lowe only moments later on lap number 7. Into the chicane he went, battling side by side there with Nick Peterson. Peterson got past, so then what exactly went wrong for Lowe? He got the power down, power oversteer, oh my good lord, into the barrier there, and that was his race in bits as quick as that, as we make our way back to your live pictures. And it's a good thing we have come back when we have, ladies and gents, because we haven't got long left in this race now. On to lap number 10 of 12. Indeed, with only 5 minutes left on the clock, but we are going to complete this race based on laps rather than time. And here comes Felipe Ramos up the inside there. Antonio Bianchi makes the move nice and quick. Will Bianchi come back in there up the rise? And the answer is he thinks about it, but it is a big no, as Ramos almost goes deep there. And well, in the end, Ramos just about keeps it together, but Bianchi wants that move. You could see it, but unfortunately, he's too close. And into the S's, there's no way through, as the car bounced its way up towards turn number 6 right now. And Antonio Bianchi, I think, would be hoping if only that mistake could have happened a quarter earlier, I may have been able to make it happen my way. But right now, the number 17 driver here just having to wait. It's not going to come safely for him. Meanwhile, just up the road, And Jace Mayer in 8th place is pulling away from Sergey Proc and Craig Brick as Proc has had a run wide at turn number 7. And that's opened up the opportunity here for Brick to try and look for a move as they make the way down. And Brick in getting ahead for the time being. Onto the brakes both drivers come. And Brick making that move in towards 9th place is behind. That's going to be Ramos versus Bianchi. It's part 2 of their battle. And well, Bianchi looking around the outside to the inside. Gets a better run off the chicane. And he's going on the inside of 11 and 12. Surely this will count for something. And it will as Ramos now tucks back in behind. But onwards they go. And as he gets ready to battle on the braking here, you can see Bianchi comes right across there into our camera shot. And up the hill, Ramos right now looking left, looking right as Joshua Cronin has caught up to the pair. Will be under braking here in towards the downhill run at turns 2 through to 5. Well, Ramos there, he can be close, but he's going to fall back because here Dirty Air will just naturally cause the pace to fall away. We are on the penultimate lap. We have got one more lap after this one to go, and then it's going to be onwards to our extended feature 8. But as these drivers make the way onwards, Ramos right now, I think not able to get anywhere near close, at least at this point in time, as Nick Peterson meanwhile battling here with Sergey Proc. And it's going to be the fight now for 10th place as Proc dropping down the order like a stone. I think he's made a mistake coming through what was turn 6 and 7. And Peterson here is not going to say no to enjoying the battle as they both put the push to pass on. But coming through as our leader has already gone to the final lap. So Finney Fitzsimmons is only now the best part of 50 seconds away from seeing the checker flag. But Nick Peterson right now knows he's got one more to go. But gets head of Proc there and makes a firm pass. And he's going to make it stick. But back to your leader, here he is, Finney Fitzsimmons, and he is the best part of 6.5 seconds ahead of this pair of Adam Merchant and Elliot Rolls. And Merchant has found his way clear of Elliot Rolls, but he's got no way of getting close to Fitzsimmons at this point. There's just not the pace there at the moment, but I think you have to settle for second. Not that he'll complain at that, given the package that Fitzsimmons has brought to the table here today. Fabian Sanchez, meanwhile, in 4th place. He has Shahi's ahead, 9 tenths behind, but I think they may all be static, these drivers, right now, unless anybody makes the mother of all mistakes. Speaking of mistakes being made, Sergey Proc has made a mistake on the last 2 laps in what is consecutive succession. And right now, as our drivers make the way on, where's Jace Mayer? Mayer's into the wall. Mayer's had a mistake. And meanwhile, this opens up a doorway. But we have to leave this battle, ladies and gentlemen, because as our drivers make the way towards the end, it's victory for Finney Fitzsimmons, making it his 7th win of the season. Adam Merchant, meanwhile, Elliot Rolls close behind him into the chicane. But Merchant will take the run-up spot ahead of Elliot Rolls. That's your podium. And there'll be Fabian Sanchez in 4th ahead of Shahi's air. And a further 5 seconds back to a season best performance for Austin Thomas, who takes 6th place. Head of Shay Bruffett in the end recovers to 7th place after his 3rd place start. Then it's going to be Craig Brick coming on through behind after a valiant battle. He finishes just ahead of Nick Peterson and Antonio Bianchi. And Peterson in the end will be classified as 9th head of Bianchi, who rounds off the top 10. And then it's going to be Sergey Proc in 11th place there ahead of Joshua Cronin, with Leo Del Mar coming on home in none other than 14th place behind Elliot Court. And it'll be Felipe Ramos who rounds off that top 15. Arturo was 16th ahead of Demont Dotson, who in the end could only manage 17th place, but to be fair, stayed out of trouble in the way to doing so. And then it's going to be Matt Strong a bit further behind, as our time tower there being a little bit erroneous, but it does seem to be calming itself down. And Strong coming on through in 18th place ahead of Ricardo Espido, who in the end will bring home at 19th and be your last lead lap finisher. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a first race of the day. Full of excitement, no doubt about it. And, well, as we now get set for race number 2, it's not going to be too far away. And, well, it gives us a lovely brief breather here to get ourselves set for our second race, which is just around the corner. As we do wait for it, and we have our brief warm-up period, here are the race results from race number 1 here at Road Atlanta, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we got to see, Finney Fitzsimmons in the end for MSR Purple delivered an incredible race, taking pole position in the end, withstanding the pressure on the opening lap to bring home a 7.5 second win over Adam Merchant. The Squid Gang Racing driver in the end enjoyed an absolutely brilliant battle between himself and Elliot Rolls, with the DDK Racing driver in the end not quite able to come back at him in the late stages, but what a fight. And Fabian Sanchez was 4th there for Squid Gang Racing, and indeed 2nd and 4th for the team. That's going to be a huge injection of points, with Shahi Zahir taking 5th there for Arrive and Drive Racing. The Sri Lankan driver in the end couldn't quite make his way onto the podium, but a top 5 will go down very nicely, as it will for MSR Green's Austin Thomas with his 6th place finish, his best result of the season. Shay Bruffett was 7th there for DDK with TH Jordan, ahead of INCA Salsa Racing's Craig Brick, who fought on through to 8th place. And it was Nick Peterson and then Antonio Bianchi who round off your top 10. Behind the Arrive and Drive Racing and INCA X51C drivers, Sergey Proc took 11th place there, the privateer just ahead of Team Boats' Joshua Cronin. And then Elliot Court made his way from the pit lane start to 13th, just ahead of Leo Del Mar, with Felipe Ramos there completing the top 15. Arturo Mioga took 16th place there for Inca Chips. behind the sister team driver INCA Salsa, and it was Demont Dotsonet in 17th place in a bit of a lonely end to his race, but ahead of Matt Strong, and Ricardo Espino completed the top 19, with being a lap down to Jace Mayer for MSR Purple after his moment with the barrier coming out of turn number 5 on the final lap. And we also did see there was difficulties for Robert Nobles, Renison Lowe, Johnston Bra, James Turnbull, Xavier Zainav, and also very early in the race for Aaron Gersler, Catherine Sweat, and Cameron Nix, with neither of those drivers able to complete an opening lap. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that completes our first race of the day. And, well, the great news is we are not too far away from going green flag racing once again. And if you haven't had a chance to quickly top up whatever liquid refreshment you have available, do so, ladies and gentlemen, because you'll need to hold onto your hat when we make our way back to the grid for race number 2. And as I do, make sure to take a quick sip of water myself there, so that way I've got plenty of voice left for our second race coming up. A reminder of your schedule that's coming up, of course. We just completed our 12-lap sprint race, and now we've got a 38-lap feature race. Indeed, it sounds like a lot of laps, but those laps will very quickly fly on by, no doubt about it. And when we do see our drivers make their way onto the grid, well, they'll be thinking about strategy, which will be so important around here. And while the big talking points that definitely has played out in the sprint race is the fact the dirty air, how much an effect it has to our drivers' ability to stay close to each other in the open half of the lap, whereas in the second half of the lap, with the long backstretch, plus also the run of the chicane, well, we got to see there the power of being in the slipstream, so it really is a double-edged sword, and having a good pit stop and finding some clear track could be just as valuable as coming out in traffic. But we will see what our drivers have in mind here, as we still do have, I think, the best part of 2 minutes on the clock in this warm-up session, and we look to Robert Nobles making his way around. And, well, for Nobles, definitely a session whereby in race number 1, things didn't quite click compared to his teammate necessarily, but then again, it does seem as though the MSR Green team are gradually moving forward as the season goes on, and we look forward to seeing what they can do, because they don't always want to be in the shadow of their MSR Purple sister team drivers. MSR Purple, of course, the team's championship leaders coming into this round, but it's a long season still ahead here, and just one poor round can completely turn things upside down, as Aaron Gersler, well, he makes his way over that rise in the wonderful INCA machine. And the colour scheme on that car really does stand out, it must be said. And indeed, for one of the most vibrant liveries out there, as he does put a lap on the board. Leo Delmar does as well, albeit this is purely warm-up laps. These laps are not worth anything other than just keeping the adrenaline and the energy flying. Some drivers, of course, deciding to get out the car and take a little bit of a comfort break. Others, meanwhile, just wanting to stay in the car and keep the laps going, trying to find that extra 10th. And understanding for Leo Delmar, given the fact he had the pit lane start for the sprint race, now he's thinking to himself one thing, which is, I need to go forward even more, and he's going to be looking to try it and make his way into the top 5, if not onto the podium if he can. And it will be the same for Elliott Court. But through he comes, and as he does so, well, a few more drivers here as well. They're all getting those practice laps as best they can. Cameron Nix as well, whose race, of course, started off and ended in the gravel by the end of the first corner. So for number 11 driver, definitely not the race he wanted to remember in the sprint. He'll be hoping just for a happier start after his altercation with Catherine Sweat into turn number 1. And Shahi Zahir, meanwhile, parking up there, I think practicing his race start on what is the back stretch, which you can do, of course. Just simply park the car over to the inside of the circuit and you'll be able to do it. And he's just getting that little bit of practice in the launch control. But looking to Robert Nobles then, as he comes on down towards the chicane, he's not going to be able to complete it because, ladies and gentlemen, the warm-up session is complete. It's time to head to the grid for our second and final race here of round number 4 in the championship. And so as our drivers make their way to the grid once again, this is how they'll all line up for race number 2 here at Road Atlanta. It is Austin Thomas who has earned himself the right to be your reverse grid pole sitter with that 6th place finish. The MSR Green driver joined on the front row of the grid by Shahi Zahir for Arrive and Drive Racing. Then it's going to be Fabian Sanchez who starts in 3rd. The Squid Gang Racing driver here looking to go for the podium, head of Elliott Rolls for DDK Racing. And then behind the Scotsman, it will be the American driver there of Adam Merchant for Squid Gang Racing. And he's got work to do to keep the 6th place starter, Finley Fitzsimmons, who took the win in race number 1 quite comfy for MSR Purple, keeping it behind. Then it'll be Shay Ruffett who starts 7th there, just missing out on the pole position for race 2 for DDK with TH Jordan, ahead of Craig Brick for INCA Salsa Racing. And then we'll have Nick Peterson for Arrive and Drive Racing starting in 9th place there, ahead of Antonio Bianchi for INCA X51C, completing that top 10. Outside the top 10, behind the Canadian driver, It will be Sergei Prot who starts the length with his gradual fall down the order towards the end of race number 1, perhaps being foreshadowing of what may come in this one unless he's planning to do the inverse. Then Joshua Cronin starts 12th for Team Boats, just ahead of Elliott Court for DDK Racing, and he'll be in the company as his fellow pit lane starter from race number 1 of Leo Domar, who makes up the 7th row win for Rodent Racing. INCA Quasars, Felipe Ramos starts 15th ahead of Arturo Mayorga for INCA Chips, with both drivers there in the sister team machines making gradual progress in race 1. There'll be DeMont Dotson in 17th place there for Formula American Racing, the last of one of your lead lap finishers, just ahead of Matt Strong for INCA Salsa Racing and INCA Quasars Ricardo Espino. Next, Jason Mayer for MSR Purple with that late brush with the barrier at turn number 5 on the final lap of race 1. Starts in 20th, knowing it could have been a top 10 start instead, and he will be joined behind by none other than Robert Nobles for MSR Green and Team Boats' Renison Lowe, who make up row number 11. Then it'll be none other than Johnston Bra, who starts 23rd ahead of what is James Turnbull for Raccoon GP. Then on the penultimate row of the grid is Xavier Zainab for Rodent Racing and Aaron Gerster for INCA Salsa Verde. And it'll be Catherine Sweat on the final row of the grid, 27th for Formula American Racing, head of Cameron Nix for INCA Salsa Verde. Well, that's how they all line up, ladies and gentlemen, and well, for the second time today, here we go once again as they all line up on the grid. The lights go on, the revs are going to rise here for 38 laps here at Road Atlanta. It is lights down, away we go for race number 2 as they all get away. Austin Thomas there having a slow start. Shahi's there immediately looking to get closer around the outside. But in the second phase, he's got the problem of Fabian Sanchez on his inside as they make the way out the hill. All these drivers right now very keen to impress early on as we see a run to the grass slightly from Austin Thomas as he rejoins. He's going to drop behind as they all come down. There's contact. Who's that going around? Is that Finley Fitzsimmons? It is. Fitzsimmons is into the grass. They all scatter around. Austin Thomas meanwhile's gone around as well as he's trying to rejoin. My goodness, it's a dramatic start to the race. And suddenly the man who took the cover to win in race number 1, his race has come undone here. Can he get it going again, or does it mean a toe to the pit? We will see, but with the shuffle, so many drivers have moved up the order. As you see Craig Brick moving upwards, he's already up into 5th place, and Nick Peterson with Sergei Prot behind. Indeed, you couldn't make this up right now. It's a big twist here. And I suspect there's going to be more turns in the towers. There are corners here at this circuit before this is all said and done in this one as they make the way down the backstretch for the first time of asking. Plenty of overtake buttons on here, but do you conserve it instead, given the fact you've only got 200 seconds and your time down the straight is going to be an extended one? We'll prop battling side by side with Peterson. Peterson looking to take the place off him for 6th. He'll do that up the inside in towards the chicane, and Prop backs off instead. But all the drivers coming through over the rise and down they come in towards turn number 12. And what an open lap it's been. Shahi's ahead, leads ahead of Fabian Sanchez. Elliot Roll sits in 3rd ahead of Shea Bruffett. Then it's Craig Brick followed by Nick Peterson. Peterson's got the mother of all pressure here with Sergei Prot and Leo Delmar right behind him. There's Chase Mayer in 9th place ahead of Felipe Ramos who completes your top 10. And best the rest in 11th is Robert Nobles as Ramos they're struggling into turn number 2. The car sliding loose on him. Adam Merchant, by the way, he's dropped all the way down to 15th place. Finley Fitzsimmons has made the opening lap. He is still going, it should be pointed out, but he has got damage on the car. As meanwhile, we've had one of our drivers go a long way down the order. Who is it, I hear you ask? And well, it's Matt Strong who's had a huge instant. Going on through, I think there's been another incident here as we've got a car, there's a load of smoke. Was that Antonio Bianchi in the wall? I think it was. As we look back to him, there he is. There's Antonio Bianchi. He's buried in the barrier there on the exit of turn number 5. And indeed, that has got connotations of what we saw for a couple of tries earlier on in the sprint. But meanwhile, coming back to Sergei Prot versus Peterson versus Delmar. Well, right now, these three all going in towards turn number 10 here. And it is Delmar right now who is falling backwards here as Peterson's going to go inside to outside. Is that going to work? The answer is not quite. As in the end, Leo Delmar does get the better run off the corner. He gets the traction, and now here comes Jace Mayer looking to play ball as they make the way on to the next lap. But goodness me, things are not settling down yet as Mayer looking up the inside here into turn number 1, but it's all for naught from that far back as they head up the hill and now cresting as they go. In towards the left, right, left they come, down through turns 2, 3 and 4, and Mayer has to back off there as the number 77 driver knows the dirty air is only going to lead him astray the closer he sits to the back of the arriving drive racing machine. We're going on through the SS sequence and now up towards turn number 6. Meanwhile, a bit further behind, Elliott Court here in the number 1. Well, whilst Leo Delmar was able to make his deficit to the lead be halved, and for Elliott Court, he's barely moved forward. In fact, he's moved backwards by 3 places. So I think Court there being caught up in everything that happened as he looks up the inside. It's a big move there versus the Team Boats machine of Renison Lowe. Does he get it? Not quite. It's going to be a 2-wide run now, but it's 2 by 2 here as they all make the way down the back stretch because we can see Felipe Ramos right now having a hold behind him. Joshua Cronin on one side, Adam Merchant on the other. Merchant here looking to the outside. Do they go 3 wide? No. In here, it's going to be 2 wide as Felipe Ramos tries to gift the slipstream to both drivers, and Cronin has to back out, but in turn he wants to go around the outside of Robert Nobles. He can't make it happen. Adam Merchant here now squeezes round through. Is Merchant going to make make this happen? He does. Ace on the back of Robert Nobles here for 10th place. Merchant's on a great recovery drive so far. There's Finley Fitzsimmons in the rear of the pitch as well. Fitzsimmons is on a mission as they all coming into the corner. My good lord, everybody trying to extend the width of the corner as much as possible there. Taking grass with them. And in the end, it's going to be Joshua Cronin versus Elliot Court as Redison Lowe losing out there to, well, in fact, Redison Lowe gaining versus Demond Dotson, who finds himself in the wrong place at the right time to go sideways there, going down for return number 4. And I suspect that's not him being aided around. I think that might be the tyres just been overheated. All the battling that's going on between this group. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can, as all these drivers carry on their journey. And now Finley Fitzsimmons at the inside there of Redison Lowe for 15th place. Fitzsimmons still gaining, but we don't know what damage is on that car. Meanwhile, Adam Merchant has now got ahead of Robert Nobles coming through turn number 7. He's got this long line of cars behind him, however, and well, I don't envy this man because the Squid Game Racing driver just needs to clear them. If he can break away, he will be in peace, but I don't think it's going to be easy here as they look to go 3 wide again. Into the braking zone they go, and Philippe Ramos there being practically crowded off the road, and Ramos right now to back off now as he would have lost his front wing, if not plenty more. It could have been tears, but over the hill they all come, roaring their way down past our static camera as quick as that, approaching the best part of 165 miles an hour at the apex. And here comes Cronin of the court, battling side by side, caught on the inside. Joshua Cronin has the door open now, runs out wide onto the exit curb, and that's going to be Finley Fitzsimmons getting on through. Fitzsimmons gets it done, and Joshua Cronin losing 2 for the price of 1 as we've got Rallycross in play there, as one of the drivers has gone wide. Who exactly is that taking a trip wide? And I believe in the end that is going to be Robert Nobles dropping it down the order like a stone here, and Nobles drops down to 15th place. Small mistake, but big price to pay. And right now the battle to get into the top 10 here is absolutely intensified. Indeed, things have got a bit quiet towards the front of the field, although we will be coming back to it shortly, because I think a fight for 4th place may be on, and in fact, yes it is. As here's Shea Bruffett versus Craig Brick, as Brick in the end braves it all the way to the white line, up the inside of Craig Brick, of what is Shea Bruffett, he goes. And in the end, Craig Brick gets that move done as Shea Bruffett tucks in behind. And right now, these two, well, can they really afford to fight? That's going to be the problem between them, because they make the way past our static camera, well, understandably at this point. And now it's going to be Bruffett coming back at him, and Sergei Prox watching this, and I think licking his lips together, thinking to himself, you know what, if they're going to fight this hard, I'm only going to gain time on them. So coming over the rise onto lap number 6 right now. It's been an absolutely entertaining opening 5 laps. There's still more to come as Fabian Sanchez and Elliot Rolls now very close together, and the number 5 attacking the number 8 here, with Shahi's ahead, trying to hold a bit of distance as Rolls gets it wrong, coming out of 5, takes a pinch of grass with it, and that's going to cost him some time. Bruffett meanwhile still has Craig Brick behind, and Brick right now, well, I can tell you one thing, whilst Craig Brick may not have been the fastest in qualified, he definitely looks comfortable in dirty air, but Sergei Prox says, right, it's my turn, Craig. Goes up the inside there, and Brick sees it coming and leaves the door open, and well, Sergei Prox, they're going for a bit of an unconventional place to overtake, given the risk now of running down the back straight here with the draft problem and the push to pass, but somehow, some way, he feels happy with the way this is going. And coming down towards the braking zone, you can see there 2 wide behind. That is going to be Delbar and Brick side by side. And it's going to be Delbar up the inside of Craig Brick, who lets it go. Further back, Elliot Court here still fighting with Philippe Ramos. Ramos right now is not letting him go whatsoever in that number 73. But the number 1 driver here, the defending driver's champion, in the end is going to take the place off of him. And, well, makes it happen as Joshua Cronin queues up behind. Now looks to the switch back to the inside of turns 11 and 12. On the inside of Ramos and gets that done. At least for a brief moment. But Philippe Ramos now back to the inside here. He thinks about it and then decides, no, it's not the time to pass. Austin Thomas, meanwhile, the man was relegated a long way down the order, having started on pole position after his excursion at what was turn 1 of the opening lap, which we are going to eventually get a replay of. I'll keep saying it just to remind myself we do need to do it. But as the drivers coming through, it will be, well, Zainab and Nobles there as well coming through. Robert Nobles getting a mistake on, and as a result, he'll give the place to Austin Thomas and Zainab. He drops down to 20th place. And MSR Green, this race has definitely gone backwards, not forwards for them so far. But they've got time to try and make amends. Indeed, there's plenty of time left in this race, at least for the time being. But at the front of the field, after clearing Elliot Rolls, Fabian Sanchez right now is immediately bolted after Shahi Zahair, and Zahair, who was looking rather safe at the front of the field, suddenly now has a problem, which is that Fabian Sanchez is growing quicker and quicker. And there you can see the gap to the 3rd place man in the rear of the picture. Shea Bruffett, meanwhile, he then brings the rest of the field on through with him, because he's 4th head of Brock, Delmar and Brick. They are so close together. Here comes Leo Delmar at the inside. He goes for it. It's turn 1. They touch wheels. Do they survive it? They do, just about. But my goodness, they're any closer than that, and it could have been in tears for both of them, as in the end Sergei Prox defends it around the outside of 3, and my good lord, I thought we were going to see 2 cars off into the grass, if not to the barrier there, and well, somehow that contact has not been very sending for the pair of them. I think it was wheel-to-wheel contact, and well, they've been very fortunate, but absolutely on the limit racing between these two, as Craig Brick, Nick Peterson and Jace Mann now close up in anticipation of what's to come. Austin Thomas here over the back of Johnston Bra, meanwhile. And as he gets the run out of turn number 5, runs out wide there. And Stumbrard just simply beating the car in front. That's all you got to do in order to make sure the car behind struggles with the SS sequence. But now making the way onto the back stretch. I think Austin Thomas here will fancy his chances of making some progress and catch up to Redison Low, the team boats car in front. That's gifting the slipstream there to Stumbrard, at least for the time being. Here they go down the back stretch, and Stumbrard pulling all the way over, saying to Thomas essentially, take the inside line, I don't want it. And that's going to be a very straightforward move there. And Austin Thomas there takes the place, and Stumbrard, I think, recognises the fact that right now he'd be battling with a driver who's got a lot more pace than him. It's not worth the fight. It's worth instead using him to get closer to the cars in front. But, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we are going to take a look back at some of the big moments right at the start of the race, including that race start. And here we go with a trip back in time. So we come all the way back to the start. We're going to look first at what happened to Austin Thomas here when he went green flag racing. And well, the answer is going to be 3, 2, 1. Off they go. And as he did so, got a reasonable start in the second phase. Shahi said was better at the initial launch, but then he had the problem of Fabian Sanchez. So Thomas made his way into turn number 1. Cold tyres in the tight line did not add up, and he went a bit wide. And that lets O'Hare, Sanchez, and also Fitzsimmons on through initially. But then battling with Fitzsimmons. Was that Adam Merchant making contact there with Finley Fitzsimmons? We need to take a look back, because that's not the best camera angle to do so. Here we go. Can we get a better view from the blimp camera here? I think we might, as they made the way in. And as they did, it was 3 wide, and Merchant there, and a small tap to the rear of Fitzsimmons' car sent him round. That was Arturo Mayorga taking to the escape road. We did also see Austin Thomas slide back on the road, and 2 cars getting collected together further back. This was the on board with Adam Merchant as he made his way up the rise. Oh, goodness me. And that was under braking there. Fitzsimmons came across. The Merchant was caught out there. And I think he was so smooth. The DDK Racing drive in the end was on a compromise line. But there's always more to it than meets the eye. Although not saying that Fitzsimmons calls that intentionally, to be fair. He would have been reacting to the cars in front. But definitely Merchant was caught out. And I think that's what triggered it all off. We also had this Ricardo Espino a bit further back in that order. He was making his way up the hill for INCA Salsa. And as he did so over the crest, what exactly happened with him? He looked up the inside there. Side-by-side contact with Arturo Mayorga. And they got hooked together as quickly as that. And, well, I think that's going to be a slight slam dunk there for a speed up. I think a bit too much enthusiasm to make that move happen. We then had this only moments later for Austin Thomas. And this was Thomas, well, in fact, this was Austin Thomas trying to rejoin, but the reason he went round was because he went from tarmac to grass. It all went a bit wrong for him. The car just could not get adhesion. So that explains his story. Then on lap number 2, we had this for Antonio Bianchi. This was Bianchi making his way through turn number 5 and made his way to the exit curb. Car bounced around and unfortunately tried to get the power down. And the rear right tyre saying no and sending him to the barrier. So that was his story very quickly. And then on lap number 4, we had this for Cameron Nix. Nix made his way in towards turn number 1. What exactly happened after that? The answer is tight exit line there, so looked okay. Went into turn number 2. Oh my goodness, the car snapping loose. Went to the barrier, and as quick as that, his race was brought to an abrupt halt. And then we had this for Robert Nobles. On lap number 8 only moments ago. This was Nobles versus Brick at the time. In towards the braking zone they went. In fact, that was Matt Strong, my apologies. And Strong in side-by-side contact there. And Robert Nobles the end sent to the wall. And he's going to be absolutely fuming about that one as we return to your live racing. Well, goodness me, ladies and gents, but it definitely has been an opening quarter of this race full of thrills and spoils, but there is still more to go for our drivers' toils here at Road Atlanta. We're on lap number 12 of 38. We are coming to the end of what had been the sprint race distance at this point, but then they've still got another, what is mathematically another 26 laps to go after this one. And Shahi's here right now. Well, Fabian Sanchez and Edit Rolls are with him. His game plan at this point has surely got to now be turning more tactical. I think for all 3 of these drivers, they've got to be thinking about the tactical aspects at this point, because they have been fighting whilst we've been looking back at the replay footage, but they are staying in the order we left them. But Rolls has been brought back into the equation. Leo Del Mar, meanwhile, he has started to make a break now in 5th place from Sergey Prott and Craig Brick, Nick Peterson and Adam Merchant. So I think Del Mar's game plan here is to see, as he puts the push to pass button on, it is to see where he can catch up to Shea Bruffett and leave the rest of the group behind, because he really is right now bringing the rest of the top 10 along with him. That's not something he will want to do. Finley Fitzsimmons' recovery drive, meanwhile, he's now up to 10th place. He's just got ahead of his teammate Jason Mayer off camera, and Fitzsimmons moving forward, but he does have some damage to that car, so the fact he's making this progress with damage is a sign of what is to come. He is not out this one yet. Do not rule him out of potentially winning this one. It will be a huge result if he does. For that is going to be Austin Thomas up the inside of Renison Low in towards the chicane. And Low in the end decides not to fight it too hard, respecting the fact that Austin Thomas right now in a bit of a different postcode when it comes to pace, but understandably Low wants to use him to get close to Joshua Cronin, the number 43 just up the road in front of the foreground of the camera shot. But from then we come back to your top three, because Zahere, Sanchez and Rolls, they're all still together as they make their way through turn number 7. We ride on board here with a lovely green machine for DDK Racing of Elliott Rolls as he powers his way on down here. Overtake button fully on at this point, and well, is it worth using it at the moment? That's one of the big questions. He did have 140 seconds left. He's going to have about 125 by the time they get onto the brakes. And, well, Sanchez looking around the outside there. And Zahere meanwhile's going to fight him. But Sanchez does get it done. And in the end, now it's a switchback coming off the corner as they make the way with their eyes. Well, it's going to be Rolls looking on around. And, well, understanding, I think Elliott Rolls thinks as though he might be able to make some progress into lead and perhaps run away with this. But all this fighting is just going to simply cause them a stun by each other. Rolls goes up the inside into turn 1. He will get the job done versus Zahere there, but Zahere meanwhile now can think to himself, right, stay with these two, and he can save some fuel and also save some overtaking time. But we'll see what's to come as Craig Brick makes his way into the pit lane. Brick has coming in from what was at the time none other than, I do believe, 7th place. He's the first to make the strategic stop, and it is quite early in the race, but to be fair, it is a valid time to go for the undercut, and he's got himself out of the traffic jam that he's found himself in. So we're going to keep an eye on the progress of Brick, because that might be a very important pit stop he's making essentially. He's going to drop all the way down to what will be 19th place, but he buys himself plenty of track to work with at this point. He'll have no company around him, and therefore I think he can focus on putting the laps together as that's the car going very sideways. That's Sergei Prok. Prok's into the barrier. Get it wrong out of turn number 7. That's the quick toe to the pit as Sergei Prok in the end pushed on hard coming out of turn 7, but in the end, that hairpin corner that's been catching several drivers out, including Sergei himself, it has come back to halt him. As meanwhile, we see Nick Peterson here being overtaken by Adam Merchant. Merchant up the inside. Peterson doesn't fight it. And I think Peterson here wanting to stay with Merchant and Fitzsimmons as they get closer. But in fact, Peterson ducks to the pit lane here. He decides it's time to come on in. So it's a tactical decision. Arrive and Drive Racing saying, right, Nick, there's no point you being in this pack anymore. You've held him up as long as you can. Come on in. And instead now focus on driving your own race. I think it's a smart call there. I wonder where potentially as well they've tried to essentially have Peterson sacrifice a little bit of his race time to make sure that Zahere has got the best possible chance here to chase down that podium, if not the race win. Because when Fitzsimmons and Merchant are released, and particularly if they get into the pit lane and do some repair work to their cars, especially what will be Fitzsimmons' car, I would imagine if they can do any work, even if it is only for a couple of seconds, perhaps just to simply do some what is a replacement pieces on the front end plate of that front wing, then understandably his pace will suddenly skyrocket back to the sprint race pace, and he will be catching these guys up at the best part of half a second a lap in his prime. That is going to be the one big consideration when we get into the second half of this race after the pit stops, is how quickly can Fitzsimmons and Merchant catch up to the top 3 you see on the screen right now, because whilst the top 3 here have got great pace, there's no denying that Merchant and Fitzsimmons have been on another level with pace here, as we saw in the sprint race and in qualifying. But from then we come back to Brick, and in fact he finds Nick Peterson right in front of him. And so Peterson as well has actually jumped back out ahead of the 777 car, so therefore there's a bit more strategy beyond just simply getting himself into clear air. It was to counter this man. But Craig Brick right now says, okay, if that's the way it's going to be, let me make my way past you. Peterson here, no overtake button on, neither of them using push to pass. I suspect here both drivers worried about what's to be. And in the end, Peterson being very smart there, and I think they've both got the same ideology, which is we can't afford to fight right now, because if we do, we'll relegate ourselves behind the rest of the top 10 fighters, including Jace May and Edit Court here, who fight the way to turn 6 and 7. Too wide they enter, and in the end Court can't quite go around the outside, but his game plan now surely will be just to simply tuck him behind and power his way along. No overtake button on at this point, instead just staying in the tow, as we do see a flash of the rear light there from Jace May. That means he is using the overtake, the push to pass, and here comes Court then looking down the inside, maxing out their speeds here as they get ready to go to the braking zone. Court goes all weird, and in the end it's going to be a straightforward pass, or is it? No, it's not, because in the end Mayer right now gets his elbows out. And understandably, well, he doesn't want to give way where possible. And Elliott Court here, if he finds his feed held up too long, he may have to come into the pits. He may have to change up his strategy. We'll see what he opts to do here as more to come. Back to the front of the field. Top 3 separated by half a second as they make their way through the S's. And right now, Fabian Sanchez, he's not breaking away from Rolls or Zahere. And Rolls is really trying to put the pressure on. Finley Fitzsimmons, meanwhile, is now onto the back of Leo Del Mar. Del Mar under pressure as they make the way all the way towards turn number 6. Here comes Fitzsimmons up the inside, in towards the banking right-hander. He's going to go for it there. And Del Mar, as much as he tries to hang it around the outside, that's not going to work. And Indian Fitzsimmons now up into 5th place on the road. In terms of strategy, we believe that is also 5th place at this time, but we will see. There are so many questions right now that are current on strategy. Austin Thomas, He's also continued his recovery drive and started on pole position out to 12th place, what we believe is effective 14th place in this race as he goes hunting. But what can he do? As meanwhile, back to the lead as we come. And well, too wide through turn number 12. This is Rolls trying to get ahead into turn number 1. Does he get it done? Fabian Sanchez is still there. He's still going to nose in, but in the end, he can't quite keep it together. And then Rolls has taken the lead of this race. So Sanchez and Zaire right now will follow him. But can they stay with him or will they start to pull away? Has Rolls got the pace in to make the break that nobody else can? Well, it does look as though it's the S's at least. He's got a little bit of time. We're coming up towards turn 6 and 7 now. This is going to be the key part in the fact when they come out of turn number 7, has Rolls got enough of the gap to completely neutralise what is the very potent effects of the slipstream draft? Well, out that right hand, and Fabian Sanchez immediately here heads on. Overtake button on straight away. He knows he can't afford to let Rolls get away. Rolls is quicker. Rolls on that apex gained 1.5 tenths versus Sanchez. So Rolls thinks he can do the job now. He puts his push to pass on as well to equalise the gap. He doesn't want Sanchez thinking about a dive up the inside. Well, I can tell you one thing, from 6 steps back there, that's completely in a different planet, let alone a different postcode. And well, Elliott Rolls right now might just have done this at the exact right time in order to be able to make the breakaway. We'll see what's to come then, as he's ahead now, 2 tenths behind. He thinks about getting involved here towards the opening corner, but can't quite do so. Instead stays behind. In terms of other pit stops, Aaron Gersler into the pit lane. He's coming from all the way back in what was 16th place, and he's going to be, well, your last runners on the opening lap. But he's in a bit of a fight with Ricardo Espino and Devon Dotson, so we'll see how they equate to each other once they all complete their pit stops. Further down the order, Austin Thomas meanwhile looking for a move here versus Felipe Ramos. Is this going to be a classic move on the inside into 1? It is, but it's not going to work out immediately because Ramos immediately comes back, and even credit where it's due to Felipe Ramos. Yes, he doesn't have the pace here, but my goodness, does he have the spunk and the spirit to try and defend every place he can. Ramos in that 73 right now. He is really getting in tune with his machine, and therefore Austin Thomas has got a bit of a mountain to climb as Ramos goes wide, and that may just open the door up there for Austin Thomas. It does. Thomas goes round the outside of Felipe Ramos to the end. He's got all the enthusiasm, no doubt about it, but the grass that came with him there was just a little bit too much for him to shake off by the time he got to turn number 6, and with it the loss of pace. But as he heads his way down the back straight, now he'll have James Turnbull gradually encroaching, who started 24th in this race. And Turnbull started from effectively the back of the grid after a disastrous end to his race number 1. Well, right now he's had a much better race number 2 as we get closer and closer to that midway point. New fastest lap race, a 2.577 for Finley Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons is on a charge in 5th place, and here he is now all over the back of Shade Prophet. Catching him at the wrong time, perhaps coming down into the S's sequence here with Leo Delmar 1.6 seconds back. But Fitzsimmons backs off there, tries to get the better run out the corner, and he does so, but understandably the exit curb, they're bouncing the car around. That does not help him at all. In towards the right-hander at turn of 6, looks down the outside, my good lord! Finley, you can't just be doing that to the man as he comes through the right-hander, and Buffett in the end defends, but Finley Fitzsimmons there, I don't know where this confidence comes from Finley, but it's absolutely incredible. We've seen driver after driver trying to go around the outside of turn number 6, they can't find it. Finley Fitzsimmons, he just knows where the grip levels are, and Shane Buffett does not have a response other than to try and push the pass back down towards the chicane. It's not going to work, and Finley Fitzsimmons there with a do-or-die move around the outside moves into 4th. The man is inevitable. He cannot be stopped, and as he makes his way through the corners right now, well, meanwhile Jace Mann behind his teammate is trying to catch up as quick as he can. Understand he tried to chase down Elliott Court, is making progress. Shane Buffett comes into the pits meanwhile. In reaction, immediately responded to the fact that he's just been passed by Fitzsimmons, and I think that's going to be a reaction now to the risk of being caught out by these two, of Peterson and Brick, as they make their way down that back stretch. And well, we've also got Felipe Ramos in, we've also got Joshua Cronin in. They will come out behind these two, most definitely from what we understand. But right now, where is Shade Buffett? That is what we need an understanding of. We're going to find out very shortly because we look to the blimp camera view as they make their way onwards. Aaron Buffett right now making his way out the pit lane already, and in fact Shade Buffett is going to be well clear in the end, so therefore he's not at risk of falling back into that group right now. Nice good pit stop there for the 79 team, and well, it's all clicking together as we are. Peterson and Brick, they're just making their way to turns 2, 3 and 4 right now, so therefore they won't have caught up to Buffett, but they are still definitely in contention for potentially jumping ahead of a good portion of the top 10. As into the pit lane comes Elliott Rolls, into the pit lane comes Fabian Sanchez. Shahi's ahead, goes another lap. So Sanchez decides he wants to try and split the race into what is 2. Meanwhile, Shahi's ahead decides that he wants a much longer opening stint for as long as he can. We've also got Leo Domar coming through. Finley Fitzsimmons and Adam Merchant, they have both stayed out as well. Elliott Court is coming to the pit lane, so the fuel tanks are running low. The tyres as well are starting to show their life, and that means that very quickly get a fresh set of boots on. You can be full attack. Of course, it does also be for Craig Brick and none other than Nick Peterson. When they make their way towards the end of this second stint, those tyres are definitely going to feel ancient and very heavily worn down. We've still got 22 minutes of racing left to go. We are, of course, to complete this on what will be lap distance at the moment as our drivers make the way around. Elliot Rolls has served his pit stop. He comes out in 7th place. James Turnbull behind. Fabian Sanchez, well, he's completed his pit stop. He comes out in 9th. Behind him will be Shade Buffett, a little bit further back by the best tune of 10 seconds. So, in fact, for what is Peterson and Brick, this has not worked out the way they've expected. They've lost places in time rather than gained place in time there, and that's definitely intriguing. I think it must be the slipstream and also the fact that naturally the tyres have gone a bit longer than perhaps drivers have expected. But into the pit lane comes Shahi's Air for the lead of this race. Finley Fitzsimmons makes his way on down as well. Also Adam Birch will be coming through the rear of the picture, and then it'll be Leo Delmar, the last of the drivers to pit effectively on the lead lap, will all be coming in now as we do see carrying on. Well, here's Austin Thomas. Does he stay out? No, he does not. And Jace Maz also into the pit, so they're all coming in. James Turnbull surely will be ducked into the pit lane at the end of this. Yes, he does, coming over turn number 11, just making it into the pits in time. Elliot Rolls comes on through. Does Rolls retake the lead? Shahi's Air leaves the pit lane. It's going to be very close between these two. But Rolls in does reinstate himself at the top. What about Fabian Sanchez? He loses out. So Shahi's Air in the end, by going a lap longer compared to Sanchez, has made it count. He's made the difference into 2nd place. But Finley Fitzsimmons now, he's into 4th. It's been a very quick pit stop for the number 16 team. And well, MSR Purple have not made any repairs to the car. Fitzsimmons has said to them, it's absolutely fine. Just let me get on with the job here. I'll deal with the rest. And right now, Finley Fitzsimmons is charging here. He's got 3 cars to overtake. 16 laps in which to do it. Can he make it back-to-back wins? Can he get his 7th win of the season on the board? Or will we see a new name at the top in some time? Well, we're not far away from finding out, ladies and gentlemen, but right now these drivers are pushing on as much as possible, and we're going to be excited to see Leo Delmar, meanwhile, he's come ahead of Adam Merchant. The two have swapped places in the pit lane, and right now Merchant with him again as here comes Adam up the outside. And down towards the chicane they come, and Merchant at this point, when he's going to duck ahead, Leo Delmar does not fight it too hard, and I would understand there that I think for Leo Delmar this is more about just simply taking his time and getting back involved a little bit later on. But right now the number 21 driver, he's got to get himself completely tuned in, and that's the thing as well. Shay Buffett behind has had his tyres for what has been 3 laps already, so therefore he's warmed them up nicely. Delmar is on his new set as of that first lap. He's just come out the pit, so therefore he's got to get them dialed in. The same for Adam Merchant, and these tyres do go for a heating phase. We saw that on what was lap number 1 this race for Austin Thomas's excursion through turn number 1 onto the grass. If you don't let them go for the natural heating cycle and you overheat them early, what ends up happening is essentially you cause a mass graining on the tyre, and it reduces the expected lifespan of the tyre by up to the best part of 2 to 3 laps. That's why you need to be careful, because these tyres, if they're managed for their initial heat cycle, they will last the best part of what we have seen here, about 20 laps. They will be very comfortable. But meanwhile, Finley Fitzsimmons here, he's comfortable to make a move on Fabian Sanchez. Sanchez does not have an answer to it in the end. Fitzsimmons is just able to scoop on through as they make their way over the rise now. And I think Sanchez here for Squid Gang Racing, rather than fight the MSR Purple driver, his philosophy is going to be, if I stay with him, as Fitzsimmons sets a new fastest lap race, a 102.490. He is absolutely going. It's Finley Fitzsimmons. They make their way over the rise, and as they do, well, Fabian Sanchez right now, we're really wondering what is the art of the possible, as we've got some bodywork there on the road. Who exactly has that been? Well, it's the car in front here, I think, who's had a bit of an issue as they're going to make their way on bars. It seems to be a lap down car. Is that Austin Thomas who's had a bit of a moment? I think it is, as Austin Thomas gives up the places there, being that lap down. And I think Matt Strongs as well has been in a bit of an instant, and also Ricardo Espino has just been off the track elsewhere. We haven't quite caught that on camera. Here's Joshua Cronin meanwhile. He's chasing after Johnston Bart, and their final fight is for 13th place. But it won't be worth any points given it's 12th place and upwards that achieve points. But they can fight for the right to be the best of the non-points finishers. And well, Felipe Ramos is 12 seconds up the road. But then again, if anybody retires in front of them, suddenly the place they're fighting for right now will be worth a point. And that is going to be absolutely precious to both these drivers. They head on down. But here we can see Joshua Cronin right now looking to enjoy himself there as he makes way in towards turn number 6. Through that right-hander he goes. And as he does, we say hello to the car there. I can see the text on the side of it saying hello broadcast and hello Josh, and well, I absolutely love that on the car, to be fair. It's good to see it, and indeed I do love how our drivers get on board and enjoy these broadcasts all season long, and that makes a smile come to my face. But back to serious business. Sorry Josh, we've got to focus on this battle for a second because the hair has been caught up by Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons looking around the outside then, and as they make their way out towards turn number 6, Finley then just not quite able to get the move done. What he wanted was a really good run off for turn number 5. What What he got instead was a face full of the arriving driver racing car, but coming off of the apex of turn number 7, Zuhair does deliver a good exit, so does Fitzsimmons. Overtake Button on, also the draft there, and that gives them the best part of an extra 50 brake horsepower, the push to pass Button. It does increase the top speed, but how they get there improves, and right now it's going to be a sweep round the inside here, down towards turn number 10. And will Zuhair try to hang it around the outside? No, he's not got an opportunity to do so. But now, here comes the big test. Fitzsimmons rolls. Gap is 1.6 seconds, on paper at least. You would imagine that Fitzsimmons is going to close that down within about 3 to 4 laps. Then it's about passing Elliott Rolls. And the DDK Racing Team driver in the number 1, he is not going to let himself be undone. No doubt about it, as he makes his way onwards. And as he does, well, Rolls right now roaring his way through the quarters here. And, well, the second place man of season 16 in the championship, only to his teammate of the season of Elliott Court. Well, what can he do to make sure that Fitzsimmons does not have everything go his own way? We will see, as meanwhile Joshua Cronin and Redson Lowe look to change places, and Lowe in the end up the inside there, but overcooks the corner, a little bit under braking, and meanwhile we see Joshua Cronin right now tucking in behind here, and the two drivers in the Team Boats machines both looking to do battle, but as they come through, this is the fight for 14th. Stunbral has broken away to a degree. Stunbral being 3 seconds up the road, and Cronin in falling back a little bit further, as right now where it does seem as though Lowe is gradually putting some time of day between them. James Turnbull behind. And Turnbull's definitely had a bit of a turnaround in this race, given the fact it all went into the barrier on race number 1. But here, having started 24th, he's in 16th. He's chasing down Cronin and Lowe, and his race pace, in fact, is stronger compared to 2. In fact, he has got the pace to be into 11th place versus Jace Mayer. He is the quickest of all those drivers for 11th through to 16th in clear air. So theoretically, Turnbull could bring a surprise here. The only problem is Felipe Ramos is the biggest hurdle he's going to have to overcome, because once he gets past Stunbrat, should he be able to do so, he's then got a 10-second gap to close down. That is not going to be easy to find, but down the backstretch he comes. First things first, he needs to make his way into 15th place. Joshua Cronin is the target, and the answer this time under braking is no, he won't be able to do it. He instead has to wait his turn with another 11 laps on the clock next time round, but Turnbull definitely right now seeing an opportunity here, and he's got to just keep pushing for it. As we jump on board here with a machine powered by TRD, that's Toyota Racing Dynamics, indeed very popular in what was the 90s and the noughties for the after-tuning JDM market. And as they make the way up the rise and in towards turns 2, 3 and 4, but right now Turnbull there you can see having to point the car slightly off racing line there to get out of that dirt here. It's just upsetting the aero balance of the car, but Turnbull realising for a Kun GP, if he just slightly steps it aside, he is able to offset that and actually get a much better line for the S's. He still loses time, but not as much. But we have to leave him for a moment, because Shahi's there under pressure here from Fabian Sanchez, and well, Sanchez looking for that 3rd place now versus Zuhair, who has lost Fitzsimmons, who's already almost caught up to Rolls. And in fact, as they make the way down to the S's here, well, they are going to stay static for now, but looking to leaders. They come out of turn number 5. Oh no! And it goes round and Rolls in the end under the pressure, trying to outpace Fitzsimmons, ends up spinning around at turn number 5. He gets its turn there, as we can see some cars coming through, but for Elliott Rolls, in the end, he will relinquish the lead of this race to Finley Fitzsimmons, and surely that's got to be it at this point for Finley Fitzsimmons. He has made the recovery drive whole here. What an incredible drive it's been. However, he's still got to get to the finish, and we're not going to celebrate it. They say don't count your chickens until they've hatched, and for Finley Fitzsimmons right now, he cannot take his foot off the gas at any moment. He's got to maintain his concentration here, because at any moment Road Atlanta could come back to spite him. It's happened to so many drivers, and it's just happened to a race leader as well. We'll see what's to happen before this is all said and done, but we need a replay of what's happened there for Elliott Rolls, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We take a trip back in time, and we see exactly what sent Elliott Rolls on his journey. So this was on board with Elliott Rolls, then making his way in towards turn number 5. Let's listen. And in the end, just coming off the turn 5 exit curve, the rear of the car just came slightly loose. Didn't go out to the gravel there, intriguingly. So Rolls, I think, in the end, just did not perhaps use as much throttle as before. And perhaps the steering not there with the centering of the curve just sent the car around. But for Rolls, what a painful mistake there. And what a punishing one at that. Just before this happened, we also had this from Matt Strong. This was back on lap number 20 as he made his way out the pit lane. What exactly went wrong for the INCA Salsa Racing driver? And the answer is he made his way out the hill with James Turnbull directly behind. He took a trip to the grass there and, well, let Turnbull on go. So that explains what happened between those two. So Strong just simply, I think, respecting the fact they were on different laps. We then had this only moments after for Ricardo Espino on lap 24. And this was Espino making his way up the hill towards turns 2, 3 and 4. And as he did so on the brake in here, took way too much speed and took to the club escape road. Went to the grass. Did he avoid the barrier? Yes, he did. But he had to be very careful bringing it back on because that grass is not flat and it can rip the front wing of the car off. But unfortunately, Riccardo Espino had to rejoin, only then to lose even more places. And then he had this happen to him on lap number 28. And this was Espino heading towards turn number 6. As he made his way in towards that right-hander well. What exactly happened into turn 7? Tight entry line there, and the rear of the car just snapping loose on. That's the rear brake bias. And, well, the number 73 there of none other than what was Felipe Ramos just squeezing on through in the nick of time. With that, as Aaron Gersler took the place off of him, we return to your live racing. And as we do come back, there's still more of a journey to go here. We're not quite done, as there's your leader, Finley Fitzsimmons, right now on lap 31 of 38, soon to be on lap 32. What about Zuhair? He's still fighting for second place for Fabian Sanchez. Sanchez has found his way through off camera. Unfortunately, we have missed that pass because the replay footage we're taking a look back at. So we do apologise. We won't be able to quite get a replay of that. But what we can tell you is that Zuhair is not fading away here. He is staying with Sanchez. But meanwhile, whilst they give chase to each other, looking back to Adam Merchant, he has found his way past Elliot Rolls after Rolls' big moan coming out of turn number 5. Rolls will be trying to come back. He has got the pace to match Merchant, but has he got the tyre life left to do so? That's going to be the big question mark on his race now. After that spin, it always does take a lot of life out of the tyres, particularly when they're already warmed up. A big slide loose, that injects a huge amount of lateral heat into the tyre, and you're essentially skidding on one part of the tyre. It's not rolling when you have a slide, and therefore that overheats and creates what is a massive flat spot on the tyre that then suddenly becomes horrendous to drive on. Essentially, you will go from having a lot of grip on the tyre to very little on the flat spot to then return to grip. It makes it a much more awkward tyre to drive with. And that's what Elliot Rolls is now having to deal with, particularly on the higher load corners of the S's sequence of turns 2 through to 5 on the opening half of the lap. But back to Sanchez there, going defensive versus Zuhair, and Sanchez is out of the overtake button here. So Sanchez has used it all up. This is a golden opportunity for Zuhair. Now, of course, he won't know that Sanchez has used it all up. He's got to try and figure this one out. Sanchez immediately goes defensive, and that's normally a sign if a driver immediately pulls off racing line on a short stretch of road. And Zuhair right now, because Sanchez will be able to see in his rear view mirrors that Zuhair does still have the green halo behind him as a driver. Therefore, he will still have some push to pass available. So Zuhair at this point, he's got to take confidence here, which is stay close enough and then get ready to use the overtake button going onto that back straight, and also elsewhere on the lap sparingly, and you may just be able to steal this back, and you can even perhaps use it to break away later on, depending on how much he's got left. We continue to stay on board here as he comes through turn number 7. Will he turn it on here coming through the corner? And the answer is no. Instead, he just waits for now, and I think instead what he's trying to do here is see how good his pace is versus Sanchez before he does try to deploy it. I think he's trying to suss out his weaknesses and his strengths and then know where exactly he needs to use it. He may not have much of it left himself. He may only have about 40 seconds left, to be fair, albeit we'll have to see what's to come. As he makes his way through turns 10A and 10B and over the rise. Further back, meanwhile, Elliot Rolls has Leo Del Mar closing on him. I think Rolls is really struggling for pace here, given his spin right now. The car's not in a happy place. I suspect there's also some damage to what will be the front right suspension, given the way he went into the barrier. Even though it was a light touch, the suspension rods of these cars are very sensitive to impacts, particularly when they are flush impacts on the side of the car where it's completely perpendicular to the bodywork. And right now for Elliot Rolls versus Del Mar, well, these two, they've both had a pit lane start and they've both made the way into the top 10 over the course of today. But will it be Del Mar this time who gets the better of Rolls? We will see as they come on through. But as these two do, well, right now it's definitely proven to be challenging. In fact, let me correct myself there. It's not a pit lane start that Elliot Rolls had today. It was Elliot Court who had it, and Del Mar is ahead of the man who got the better hand of him in what was the back of the grid start Interlagos. So Rolls, in fact, started with a qualifying session today. He was allowed to do it. Meanwhile, it was Del Mar and Court who are not allowed to do it whatsoever. So apologies for the confusion. As we confuse our two Elliots here, but right now both of them for the DDK Racing team trying to work together, trying to outfox what will be Leo Del Mar if they can. Well, we have got not too many more laps remaining, as that lap clock comes down incredibly quick. Then I can assure you, ladies and gents, and we're not winding them down intentionally. It is the fact the laps come quick and thick here. But as we look back to Demont Dotson, chasing after Johnston Bra, who's had a moment that's lost his front wing. And well, surely this has got to be relatively straightforward. He's had that for an off track, I do believe, coming down through the S's. It's been snapped off. And Dotson here going around the outside. He's got to take the confidence. He knows he's got the aero. And Stunbra in the end hasn't got the aero to compete with him. And that is how the Carlisle Tools machine makes its way up to 14th place. But as he carries on, his next time with Renison Low, 9 seconds up the road, but still, anything can happen. Meanwhile, Riccardo Espino here chasing after Aaron Gersler for what will be 17th place. They are the last of the lead lappers at the moment in this one. We'll have to see what's to come. In fact, they are a lap down, let me correct myself, and it's 2 laps down to Austin Thomas, the next car behind them. But both drivers here still keeping in the fight. They're enjoying a good little battle out there. And Ricardo Espino definitely has made his car the widest of everybody's today. As meanwhile, we briefly just lost our race leader for a moment. Hopefully that's not a sign of something to come here. Surely that is not the sign of the gods of racing suddenly conspiring to go against him. As Vinny Fitzsimmons has already opened up an 8-second gap to this man of Fabian Sanchez as they go on with to lap 36. 3 more to go here. And right now, what all Fitzsimmons has got to do is survive for a little bit longer. Sanchez and Zuhair, they are looking equal to each other. Further back, Merchant, Rolls and Del Mar and Court. That is the 4-way fight for 4th place right now. All 4 of these drivers absolutely close as you'd like together. And Del Mar here pushing on hard as he comes down the hill in towards the S's. He is trying everything he can to get close to Rolls, who's got the benefit of the toe of Merchant here. He would love that 4th place with Leo Del Mar. He would absolutely love the huge injection of points. But right now, he's already got a balancing act to play for as he comes through turn 6 into 7. And it's not forthcoming here. He decides to go a little bit deep, but that's the dirty air, and in the end it washes the car out nastily. And right now he won't gain as he looks behind him, and he's lost Elliot Court. Where's Elliot Court gone? He's gone off the road at turn number 7, and as Court rejoins, he's dropped a long way back. Can we get a quick replay of it? Yes, we can, and this is what's just happened to Elliot Court. And this was Court chasing after the 3 in front as he made his way through turn number 6. Looked okay. In towards turn number 7 on the brakes he went and made an even bigger error there. Rear of the car came loose, I think, on a tighter line. You could see he was actually slightly off racing line. And I think the rear of the car, they just could not grip up with the rearward brake bias. And Elliot Court making an uncharacteristic spin. And that may have just cost him some huge points. But back to your live pictures we go. And as we do, well, not long left at all now. We're on lap 37 of 38, and we're looking back to Ricardo Espino, battling with Aaron Gersler here, up the inside. That's the 17th, in towards the chicane. And, well, almost overcooks it there, and in fact, he does. As, meanwhile, Nick Peterson's had to come into the pit lane. I don't think the car's got enough to get to the end on fuel capacity by the sounds of things. So Peterson right now having to come for a quick splash and dash. That's going to be absolutely gutting for the team. For Ride and Drive Racing, who almost made it to the finish. And, well, in the end, Peterson makes his way back out. It is confirmed they hadn't loaded the car with enough fuel in the first pit stop. So Peterson right now will be fuming at that. That's cost him a chance to the top 10. But to Finley Fitzsimmons then, 1 more lap to go. All he's got to do at this point is make it on around. Fabian Sanchez, meanwhile, is breaking away from Shahi Zahair, and Zahair in the end just hasn't got enough. Even with the push to pass button available, he just does not have the pace. He saved it all up for one last gasp here, but is it going to work? As meanwhile, Adam Merchant trying to hold on with an advantage of 9/10 to Elliot Rolls here. I think for Adam Merchant, this is all looking the way he's wanted it to. He has put this together very well, but back to Sanchez versus Zahair, and Sanchez has found traffic. There's the car, Johnston Bar trying to hold on with no front wing, and they've also got another car in front of them steps aside. That's going to be the car there of none other than what is, I believe, Matt Strong stepping aside. So Sanchez has a chance right now. He's got to absolutely nail this exit at turn number 7 here and go full attack on the overtake button. He can't afford anything else here as they make their way onwards, and still it looks like Sanchez had a tiny bit left. He may just be able to do this. We will see as they power the way on here, and now it's going to be Zahair looking around the outside, but we are going to have to leave them there for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. We will come back to them because out of the final corner for Vinny Fitzsimmons, he does it. He recovers and takes the win here at Road Atlanta. But who is going to finish second? It's Sanchez. He runs out wide, and Shahi Zahair takes a season best. He takes his first podium of the season in the end. In second, just ahead of Sanchez, who holds on versus Merchant, who almost steals it away. In fourth, Leo Del Mar will take 5th ahead of Elliot Rolls. Oh my goodness, as they're all in pieces coming across the line. That's not going to look good. Elliot Court comes over in 6th place in the end, with Elliot Rolls being demoted down the order, I believe. I wonder if Rolls has picked up a black flag on the final lap and he's not been able to serve it because he is being demoted. Shay Bruffin here takes 7th ahead of Craig Brick, who comes home in 8th place as classified now. Then it will be Felipe Ramos, who comes home promoted to 9th place, just ahead of Jace Mayer, who rounds off the top 10. And then for Renison Lowe, well, right now as he makes his way through, I don't think he's going to quite believe it. He is going to be bringing home what will be 11th place, not 12th, which means he gets a couple of extra points to his name. And then it is going to be, in fact, he will be classified 12th. I correct myself there. He is classified as a lap down to Rolls this time, and it'll be Nick Peterson who comes home in 13th place, just missing out on points as a result of a small splash and dash of fuel right at the end. What an end to the race, ladies and gentlemen. My goodness me. And well, as all drivers calm down, Finley Fitzsimmons there celebrating with donuts, and indeed Shahi Zahair joining the donut train, and so is Adam Merchant. Well, in fact, he decides he hasn't got the fuel to be able to do it. Well, let's take a look back and see exactly how that battle between Shahi Zahair and Fabian Sanchez ended, because what a titanic ending. And here they were then, too wide, and it was Fabian Sanchez who dived up the inside to defend, but he took to the grass, and in the end, well, he would have defended off circuit, he would have had to have given the place up, and Shahi Zahir in the end managed to get Sanchez to make the most critical error at the last possible moment. That explains the story there, and Shahi Zahir earning his first podium of the season the hard way, but the right way indeed. And with that, let's make our way back to your live circuit side and bring you those post-race results. And so as we come back to an empty circuit, ladies and gentlemen, because Road Atlanta has gone silent, well, let's take a look at those results subject to any Stewards inquiries, and here we are. Now, the first thing we do need to confirm, what exactly happened to Elliot Rolls, I hear you ask? Well, we are double-checking the data at the moment that's been supplied to us, and we do believe, as we check, he had, on the final lap, gone over the instant point limit. So he received a black flag. It was not shown on the timing tower, but that meant he has had time added to his race on the very last lap. So that's why he was demoted down from his finishing position. So here are the results as correct, subject to any Stewards inquiries. And in the end, it was none other than Finley Fitzsimmons, who after the opening lap instant dropped him all the way down to outside the top 15. He recovered for MSR Purple all the way to the win through strategy and outright pace. Then Shahi Zahir bringing on home a second place in, his best result of the seasons of Arrive Drive Racing, and he will be absolutely proud to have taken on Fabian Sanchez, and in the end got the upper hand on the man for Squid Gang Racing, who had all the pace, but unfortunately on the brakes right at the very end, he'd lost his nerve and went deep. Then it was none other than Adam Merchant who came home behind his teammate in fourth, fighting hard for that fourth place after being involved in the Fitzsimmons incident on the open lap and had to make his own recovery drive, so he'll be proud of it, albeit not perhaps proud of the fact he was involved in that incident in the first place, but then nobody wants to get involved in contact on the open lap, I can assure you of that. And Leo Del Mar took 5th place in the end for Rodent Racing, completing that top 5 there. And what a drive from him from a pit lane start in race number 1 all the way through to the top 5. Definitely the best of the pit lane starters here at none other than Road Atlanta. Elliot Court took 6th place in the end for DDK Racing, not quite able to outpace Del Mar today with similar circumstances. And it was DDK with TX John Shane Bruffett who put on some incredible racing. But in the end, unfortunately, that 7th place not reflecting the fact he had so much fun out on circuit. Then it was Craig Brick who took 8th place in the end for INCA Salsa Racing. What a drive from him. And indeed, in the end, fell down the order a little bit, but the 777 driver really showing us the fact that after that podium at Miami all those weeks ago, he is enjoying his time inside the top 10. Felipe Ramos as well, earning some good points there for Inco Queso, just ahead of Jace Mayer, who rounded off the top 10 for MSR Purple. And today, it was just about getting the points home, and he did exactly that with Elliot Rolls in the end, demoted to 11th place with a post-race time penalty. The DDK Racing team driver will be absolutely fuming when it was all looking set for a top 5. Renison Lowe will take the final of the points there in 12th place for Team Boats. Good work from him on that lovely little livery. And then Nick Peterson taking 13th place for Arrive and Drive Racing 9. It would have been points if it were not for a splash and dash, and a strategic error earlier on in the pit stops cost him dear. Demont Dotson took 14th, one of his best performances of the season there, the first of the lap down finishers, performing an American Racing team ahead of James Turnbull, who recovered to 15th just ahead of Johnston Bra, and Ricardo Espino completed those who finished a lap down. Behind the Mexican driver, it was then Aaron Gersler, who was 3 laps down in 18th, ahead of Matt Strong, who was a further lap down in 19th, and Austin Thomas completed your top 20 after a frustrating race from pole position. It really was from hero to zero as quickly as the open lap got underway, and indeed he'll need to recover in preparation for the next race day. Outside of the top 20, it was then Joshua Cronin in 21st, where a late error cost him dear and seen him non-finish, but he was ahead of further non-finishers there of Sergei Perok, Xavier Zainav, Robert Nobles, Catherine Sweat, Cameron Nix, Antonio Bianchi, and Arturo Mayorga. Goodness me, ladies and gentlemen. Well, 2 races here at Road Atlanta today that have absolutely taken our breath away, and well, I can tell you one thing. The racing only gets better round after round here in the League Zero Formula Series, powered by INCA Salsa. But for round number 4, unfortunately, we do have to close the book on that chapter. And now it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the series or how you can get on the grid and take part in the ever-popular League Zero Formula Series, our open-wheel series that continues to go from strength to strength, year in, year out, we do recommend you go to our official website, and that is at none other than www.leaguezero.net, where you'll find all the information you need to go green flag racing with us, but also on top of that, you can find out more about the history and all what goes on behind the scenes and how to be part of the beating heart of the community, which is the official official Discord. Now, we would like to take a moment to say a huge thank you to our title sponsor, as always, and that is INCA Salsa. And if you are a fan of salsa and are looking to taste the very best, then look no further than INCA Salsa. Containing only the freshest ingredients, no gluten and no added sugar, just like the finest authentic salsa should. Once you've had a taste of the incredible family recipe salsa from Julio Espino, you'll never want to taste any of the rest. To put yourself in pole position to enjoy the best salsa you'll ever have, head to INCA Salsa's official website, and that is shop-inca-salsa.myshopify.com today to get the best possible taste. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we also need to say a thank you to our other sponsors for this series, and that's MSR Performance Engineering and Team Goon Squad. And now we look ahead to round number 5. And where are we next time? Well, we will be on Thursday, the 5th of February 2026 at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. However, you can come join us and catch all the racing action as if it were live in the post-round broadcast on Friday, the 6th of February. And as we make our way to Germany, the story is such that Finley Fitzsimmons right now, where he starts on pole or falls all the way down the order, the man seems to be unstoppable with 7 wins out of 8 races so far. But many a driver has been a star, there's no doubt about it, and the fight for 2nd through to 5th in the championship is only intensifying, with many bright stars continuing their form, such as Adam Merchant and also none other than Fabian Sanchez. But we've also seen some season best performances here today from the likes of Shea Buffett and Shahi Zahir. It may all be a shake-up in the storm next time out in Germany, but you'll have to tune in next time to find out how the story continues. But until then, we have been the League Zero Formula Series. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production. And well, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.